and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Good morning. This is Monday morning, the 23rd of September, 2019. Only 7 days until you return all your mattress cash into the banking system. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. C.T. Muga, how are you?
Very well this morning. Eric, what makes you think that people keep money in mattresses?
Wherever they're keeping it, they just need to take it to the bank. Especially the old 1,000 bob notes. Exchange it.
So our rights are being infringed upon, aren't they?
You could say that. You can still go and withdraw it and take it back to your mattress. Only that this time you'll have the new note.
Good news at last. So my morning gets better.
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
So you're 1 million, Bob. You only have 7 days and you've got to explain a lot.
Eric, I have 5,000 old notes that I have kept for posterity.
5,000, 1,000.
1,000, 1,000, 5 times. That's 5,000.
Okay.
Yes.
But you're keeping this just, for...
No, I'm going to frame 2 of them.
That's actually very interesting. That's
Yes,
something
I'm
to do.
going to frame 2 of them. 2, I am going to keep. The other 3, I will keep with the collection of foreign currencies that I normally keep, because it is going to be a foreign currency come the 30th of...
Do you still have the old 20 bob notes and such? And
I
50?
had them somewhere. I don't know where. So I have begun this new collection. This gave me an opportunity to think about beginning a new collection.
Start afresh from 5 cent coin to shilling, old shilling coin.
I had all those, and
old
somehow
silver.
I don't know where I kept them.
They keep disappearing.
Yes.
Ndu Oko.
Oh, right. Okay. We're here. Good morning. How
Good
are
morning. I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm fine.
Had a wonderful weekend.
I did.
Do you have some of this cash?
I do not. I was hoping that maybe CT would, throw some my way.
From his collection?
Yes.
You can buy something from his collection.
One of the things about this fiduciary issue, something we call a banknote, it's very difficult to throw at someone. It actually just floats in the air and heads back to the thrower.
Kind
So
of a
we
boomerang effect.
Well, we can try with a lesser currency and see how that one works.
He can't throw it.
I got it.
Ask Jerry to hand you some. Maybe it will be better. This time she'll not throw anything at you,
Why are you pursuing Jerry's soul so early?
How are you, Jerry?
Good morning. I'm
Had a
good.
wonderful weekend, didn't you?
A short one, yes.
Weekends are always short.
Somehow.
A lot has actually also happened throughout the weekend. So let's take a look at what happened. From the Standard.
Hey. Okay. DCI opens fresh probe into Mount Kenya land killings. We discussed this sometimes back, isn't it? And he opens fresh probe, meaning they are going to investigate these matters further. What will they unearth?
This is not going to be easy. The issue of this is the Kehiumwere, right?
Yes, and the other one, Boy Committee.
At the heart of the case was Breeze Limited, which a witness said bought land from a splinter land group sparking of the deadly dispute. The DCI board yesterday said that a fresh probe was underway following a High Court judgment resulting from shoddy police investigations into murders that plagued Kehiumwere.
What is going to make it more interesting are the people who are being mentioned. Transport Secretary, a gentleman by the name of Macharia,
Yep.
and the governor have been brought into this discussion.
Voila.
The Muranga governor?
Yep. Is there another Mwangi wa area?
This is the only one.
Yes, so. Mwangi of the milk, is it?
Yes.
Okay.
Wangi of milk.
Yes.
This is going to be an interesting one. It's a big one. The Kehiumwere, the land buying companies in central Kenya. So we've got this one in Muranga and the other one in Kiambu.
Yes.
Boy Committee.
Yes.
Big issues all the time.
See, this is the problem. And now our judicial process is going to begin with the media, and then it's going to go into the social media, and then we will wait for the courts to tell us how different their particular convictions are from ours, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, the court will tell you again. Shoddy investigations.
It'll be interesting to watch. KRA to monitor M-Pesa accounts to nab tax cheats. Let's try and get as much as they can. Facebook, Twitter, PayPal, and Uber are also targeted to raise revenue. According to the taxman, which I keep reminding you guys, has to raise 6 billion shillings. Hold on.
Start again.
They have to raise 6 trillion shillings actually by 2021.
Thank you.
There we go.
Remember, when you talk about billion, those are the monies that have been misappropriated. So don't confuse KRA.
6 billion is a small amount.
6 billion is a small
We
amount.
were informed 7 was not a big amount. So we know the benchmark.
So we're actually looking at it's actually 6.2 trillion shillings.
Thank you.
That KRA has to raise by June 2021. So they only have 2 years to do this. So now they're saying that we're going to go ham basically on everything to make sure that we get, so you're not going to be able to cheat anymore. Did you think that your M-Pesa transactions were secure? Not if KRA has its way. The Kenya Revenue Authority now plans to track our M-Pesa transactions to establish if what you declare on your tax returns matches what goes in and out of your mobile wallet. The authority needs to collect 1.9 trillion this year alone, and we only have 3 months left. To finance the government's 3.02 trillion shilling budget. So just to be sure you are not shortchanging the state, KRA plans to access and keep track of your financial flows through M-Pesa, PesaLink, PayPal, and other mobile money platforms. The data will help the taxman match it with your returns to see if the figures are consistent.
That is going to be a genuinely tall order.
It is. I was just going to say, if courts aren't able to admit evidence of potential criminals from their bank accounts, I want to know how KRA is going to have the right to do this, to scrutinize your M-Pesa.
This one I
Is this the
see.
most creative way of actually widening the tax net?
And why are you putting those words?
I
the
don't know
word
if it's creative or
next to
desperate.
Kenya Revenue Authority. Why? How are you trying to link the two? Things which seem, in my opinion, to be diametrically opposed.
In this case, I think maybe the adjective to use would be desperate, because you look at those numbers, 1.9 trillion in the next 3 months, they must collect it. So they had to come up with definitely ways in which they thought this money would come through.
Having said that, considering the large amounts of money that we do transact through M-Pesa, maybe they do have a right to. Because they do have a right to sort of your bank statements when you're making declarations if there's any queries. So given that we have these alternative avenues to transact, perhaps they do have a right. I want to know how they'll go about it in terms of the logistics and how they'll actually put it into operation.
That it would be interesting. That would be
They would have
interesting.
to work alongside Safaricom.
I still keep saying KRA just needs to rethink its system, its structures. You cannot just keep operating like you're chasing people who are running away from paying tax. Get creative. Use means that make people feel that they will
And they are
comply,
contributing,
and they're
exactly.
contributing to
Well,
something. Widen the
that's
tax
an even
net.
taller order, because what you want to do is is look at why people are happy to pay taxes, and it's when you have the provision of services visible and tangible to people. So you find in Sweden very high tax rates, but people are more than happy to do it and very honest about it. But here, when you don't have, say, access to healthcare, yes, the roads are good, that I'll give them, but you can't call the police, or there's no ambulance coming to you when you call the police. They're not going to turn up on time. So there's certain services, schools aren't of a certain standard. If all those were coming to you, you'd be more than happy to actually pay your taxes. So you saying that they need to encourage people to pay their taxes as opposed to sort of try and catch them out is a seriously tall order. You're looking at about 20 years for them to be able to do that. There needs to be some serious development in the provision of services.
At the same time, Jerry, if they stopped chasing you like you're trying to avoid paying tax, like you are a tax-paying person, right? You pay tax. So one time, if you don't pay tax, then they come hammer tongs on you. They make you feel like you've evaded paying tax all your life. That's not good.
To be honest, they're
It's-
quite
it's just-
approachable in that you'd even negotiate if you're late and so on. They are quite approachable. And I don't think some of these threats or some of these headlines that we've been seeing that are quite threatening, I don't think they apply to the smaller business or you or myself.
They do.
No, in that they are coming down. But I think a lot of these are warnings and deterrents, to be honest, from
They
tax evasion,
do.
from those looking to evade tax. And there's big fish they're going for. There are people evading tax, so good on them.
So what you're saying is that they should be discriminative, isn't it? That if someone seems to be an individual who earns a high net amount, the other should be the focus as opposed to somebody else who is earning less than them. Is that what you're saying?
No, I mean, if they've got it depends on what model they go for. If they've got a target to hit, they'll go for those owing millions
You know,
or billions even. as opposed to trying to find many people to hit their target. I mean, these are the tax evaders I'm talking about.
Okay.
Wouldn't you do the same?
No.
Makes sense? No? What would you do?
Why am I taxing my brain on such a matter and I do not work for the
Right.
KRA?
Okay. Dam scandal
not your
details.
forest, not your monkeys. Dam scandal.
So it's taxpayers have forked out 22 billion, and chances are that will never be recovered. This is the dam scandal. The details have come out and they've shocked Uhuru. That's what the Daily Nation is reporting. A confidential technical report that left President Kenyatta seething with anger contains a litany of errors that could have, at best, seen Kenyans pay more billions of shillings to complete the project or end up with a white elephant in Elgeyo Marakwet County. So that is Murkomen's county, isn't it? And of course, Murkomen is DP's guy, no doubt.
This is the Kimorero Dam. So 22 billion shillings gone just like that. And the people who were in court are, well, let's see how that goes.
A court this morning will decide on Cohen wife plea. A court will this morning rule on whether Sarah Wairimu, the widow of slain Dutch tycoon Tob Cohen, should be allowed to attend his burial. Wairimu, who is a suspect to her husband's killing, has asked the court to allow her to attend the ceremony slated for this afternoon at the Jewish cemetery on the Wangari Maathai Road in Nairobi. Lawyers of both parties had agreed that the burial of the businessman be conducted in accordance with the Jewish rites today. Cohen's body was found in a septic tank in his compound, etc., etc. So we'll look and hear this morning whether she'll actually be allowed to attend the burial of her husband. The case continues.
So on the fourth page of the Standard, new study shows the use of Depo-Provera is risky. Weeks after the WHO cleared the popular birth control jab of fueling HIV, a new study in Nairobi's Majengo slums warns that the drug may increase infections. This study was published by Kenyan and Canadian scientists last Thursday, and it says there is compelling evidence that Depo-Provera increases the risk of HIV infections among users.
But they say it doubles it. Doubles the risk.
Doubles the risk.
Yes.
It's a huge one. In 2011, scientists from Kenya Medical Research Institute, Moi University, the University of Nairobi, and other foreign institutions had warned that Depo-Provera doubles the risk of HIV infections. But the WHO and Kenya's Ministry of Health downplayed the link. Whom do you believe?
On the face of it, you can see what they are saying. I think if you dig a bit deeper, it might not quite be the case. So what they're saying is because you've taken birth control or contraceptives, you're probably not as cautious and you're not using other protection. But having said that, I think what might have been happening if they weren't taking the birth control is that they would still be getting pregnant and having more children with HIV. So if you start to look at numbers of infected, it would have still gone up.
But this one is specific to this particular one.
Yes, but this
Depo-Provera.
study only had 58
Samples.
well, we don't. Eric.
Okay, 58, whatever.
You don't, you don't refer to humans as samples.
What do you call them?
Participants.
Yes.
Let's go with participants.
They screened 370, but this was from a sex worker cohort in Pumwani. Okay. So these are preliminary findings. They were looking to determine whether these are what you call high risk women, okay, and this is what you call a sample size, okay. Now, from these women who are high risk because of the nature of their work, this is what they found, okay. But remember, as Jerry correctly put it, they were already high risk,
Yeah.
okay, and the issue of pregnancy now comes in when someone wants to prevent themselves from getting pregnant. What is not being said is that they have unprotected sex.
Yeah.
So the likelihood of them infecting or being infected simply becomes higher. That's really that is the reality.
So in this case, there's no alarm for the other thousands of women who use this contraceptive?
Research findings are not meant to be alarmist. They're meant to be informative.
Well, in this case, I mean, it would be alarming for people who've been using it and then now begin to ask themselves, okay, then am I at risk?
Yes, but you see the study was for one.
One particular.
There are many others. One. So you do not know whether this would the results would be replicated if you use others. You see, they're focusing on Depo. They're not saying it's physically harmful to anybody, according to what we're reading here.
It just changes behavior.
Yes, it does.
Because it changes attitudes.
Yes, and we could argue the same for other
Absolutely. For any. I
Yes.
think it's a bit unfair on Depot here.
Yes.
They should have said contraceptives in general.
I mean, groups that work with sex workers and people who are in this line of work have actually asked WHO for more clarification on this matter. Yes, because the results themselves, the way it is presented, could be alarming.
Yes.
But it need not be alarming. It's just informative. This is what we found with this group.
Yeah.
And what were, you see, when you lay out the number of questions that were asked, you start by what it is you wanted to find out. Remember, research seeks to respond to questions. There's a question that is unanswered, and they seek to answer it. So that information, then we would know. Then say, okay, well, the findings would then be put into context.
Although I don't know, intuitively I'm inclined to agree with them because you can imagine a sex worker would use condoms ordinarily to prevent themselves from getting pregnant because it interferes with their work as well. So if they have other means of preventing pregnancies, then maybe they're not going to use protection or that sort of protection, and they're more likely to catch infections. There is that angle. So I'm inclined to agree with them, but on the surface. So I've gone from the other side to the other side this morning. Already.
Jerry, you must endeavor, as you are, to give a good name to the concept of a pendulum. And it can't be a pendulum, it doesn't move from side to side. So,
Carry
good job.
on.
Yes,
There
good
you
job.
go,
Doing
voila.
very well.
It means I'm alive and thinking
Yes,
and
good
fluid.
job. Good job. Good job, Jerry.
All right. Balala has been blamed for the death of rhinos at Savo Park. Yes.
Why?
Well, let's see. MPs say Balala should have appointed a new KWS board to provide leadership during the animals' transfer. So we needed another committee within a committee at this point.
To transfer rhino.
There you go.
Haven't we
MPs
transferred rhinos before?
Yes, but apparently in this case they died, and so there must have been a committee to make sure that during their transfer, everything was in place. Let me give you some more information. MPs have blamed Tourism and Wildlife Cabinet Secretary Najib Balala for the death of 11 rhinos during relocation in August last year. In a report, the National Assembly Committee on Environment and Natural Resources found that Balala was responsible for errors that led to the botched operation. Apparently, they consumed saline water, or saline, however you choose to pronounce it, which killed them. One of Balala's errors, according to the committee, was failure to appoint a new board of trustees at the Kenya Wildlife Service. This, according to the members of parliament, created a vacuum where no one was around to offer policy direction in terms of what should have happened during the transfer, in terms of, what measures needed to have been taken, other things put in place to make sure that these rhinos made their way to their destination. But apparently, these things were not done, and all 11 rhinos have unfortunately died.
Is that policy, really? Is that policy failure?
It's interesting. They're blaming an absentee.
Yes.
Basically, it's a very clever way to get out of it. So it seems like they're blaming Balala, but they're then going on to say, well, because he hadn't
Absence of a
appointed
board.
somebody.
Yeah.
So it's that it's that ghost guy, whoever he could have been, might have.
It's a
Shoulda, woulda,
vacuum at the
coulda.
board level.
Yeah, the individual who was never appointed now is to blame.
Well, somebody has to be culpable considering the magnitude of what happened.
Yep.
These rhinos, of course, are an endangered species, and that's why we don't need them in Nairobi Park. We need them somewhere safe where there's no pollution, as CT told us.
Where there's no salt water.
With the salt water, I mean, it beats me. Wouldn't they know that it's salt water? Wouldn't they taste the salt? and-
Yeah, I think there's a
and
lot
not
more
drinking?
there.
Of course, it definitely goes.
And the
much
people who are
deeper.
doing this translocation are not just quacks. They are people who've done this thing.
This is what they do.
This is what they do. They've
Yes.
actually studied this. They.
I reckon there was something inside the jabs because they give them some semi-paralysis
yes,
injection,
there's
don't
something. There's something
they?
else.
So I think they
that
bought a
caused
cheap
this.
or bad batch, or
Do they
somebody
do
did something
postmortems
wrong.
on such animals if they wanted to determine?
Well, it's a
whether-
bit late to do so now. I doubt it.
I think they did, and that's what actually
A
said.
postmortem.
It's a saline water that they consumed.
Where did you get that
they killed.
information from, Eric?
What?
That they did a postmortem on the rhinos.
During their coverage of this story,
They
It
said they
it
did
was covered.
postmortems.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
KWS said that this is what happened.
Hmm.
Remember, there was a whole inquiry into what exactly has happened to our rhinos.
By the way, when you're talking about rhinos, and talking about game parks and talking about pollution, you see, the one thing that we don't seem to be paying enough attention to is this matter of climate change. We hear it in the news. There's going to be a conference in New York of people who are experts in this particular field. The United Nations is making a big hoo-ha about it. There's some young teenage Swedish girl who's a major activist in this field. The thing is, ice caps are melting everywhere. It isn't as though it's in one place. In places like China, we're being told that the water levels are rising by 1 meter per year. Now, you know, a meter is a lot.
Yep.
Right.
So we don't seem to be paying enough attention to this. I mention this as a by the way because when you talk about rhinos, the whole story of the environment comes to mind. Maybe this is a discussion for another day.
Climate change.
Yes.
A big one.
Some argue that it's all a myth. But,
All these heat that we feel is a
Yeah,
myth.
suddenly.
This extreme heat is
well,
a
it
myth.
might not be man-made. It could be the natural cycle of
Yeah,
the
it may not
Earth,
be as
so-
bad as we
imagine.
Well, there's some
as we
people who
portray
argue
it.
that it's not what it is.
Yeah.
Of course they do. And the same people who argue that Elvis Presley never really died, isn't it?
Yeah, you know what they say. No matter how thin you slice it,
So, Louis, three sides.
two sides. Okay, Gideon in the Nation, or is it the Standard I'm looking at? It's the Standard. Gideon advises youth to acquire technical skills. So the senator says that they're a better place to create employment and also become competitive in the job market. So I guess he's echoing the president's sentiments some weeks ago, telling people university is not everything. There's other skills that we can acquire that would help you, get gainful employment or meaningful employment. He was speaking at Kapso African Inland Church, where he attended a church service yesterday. Gideon said that there's a need to empower young people through training in technical institutions, as this will enable them to work and afford a decent living.
Okay.
Interesting.
Okay.
True.
Is there how this should be done?
I think what he's saying is university is not everything. So, start...
Think
change your
beyond.
change your perspective a little bit.
Yep. Now we're talking about September 30th. A man has lost 15 million shillings in cash rush exchange. A man has claimed that he was robbed of 15 million shillings as he tried to help a politician who wanted to change 1,000 banknotes to US dollars. The money dealer reported to Capitol Hill Police Station in Nairobi that a man known to him informed him that a politician had 15 million shillings in the old currency and wanted it changed to US dollars at a good rate. The victim, who runs a foreign exchange bureau in Eastleigh, told the police that he then packed 150,000 US dollars and boarded a car used by the said broker. On reaching Upper Hill area, the broker threatened the money dealer and took off with the cash. Took off with the dollars, took off with the old notes. The man is left with nothing.
Ouch.
Okay.
It's a politician.
Okay, but you know, it's an interesting story as far as stories go. Where's the evidence in any of this thing apart from what the person is saying?
It's his word.
Yes. One is not saying that it didn't happen, but it's him saying he had this, this is what he does, and maybe that's what he does, and the amount he's saying, it is him who is saying it. So this falls in the realm of what?
Well, this is what the DCI then should investigate.
Okay, let the DCI investigate.
Yeah, and that's what that's their job. Investigate and find out.
You know, if it's true, it really is tragic. Huh? That's a lot of money to lose.
That's a lot of money to lose.
Well, his business should have some sort of insurance, no?
15 million and gone like that. And you took the money. So the man did not want to come to you. You run a forex bureau in Eastleigh. The man could have come to Eastleigh.
Could have come to Eastleigh. That's for
He
sure.
tells you come for the money and bring me the dollars.
Clearly, these are people who've done business before.
They've worked before.
Yes,
They've worked
it's
together.
not-
Even the
I mean-
broker. The man and the broker know one another.
Someone doesn't just ask you to do that sort of work for them, and somebody 150,000 US dollars in the boot of a car and you drive, and no. So somebody they know. So it isn't a complicated case. They will get to the bottom of it.
Yep,
at some
they were
point.
played.
Yes.
A court has allowed a bishop to divorce a wife of 21 years. The court has allowed the dissolution of a 21-year marriage between a Mombasa-based bishop and his wife on grounds of adultery, dissertation, and denial of conjugal rights. On Friday, Mombasa resident magistrate Joshua Nyariki allowed Bishop Evans Mayengo Elegwa and Pastor Helen Jalenga Luyali to end their troubled marriage.
Okay.
He accused the wife of deserting their matrimonial home in 2016. He claimed that she had exhibited cruelty towards him. He traces the woes to the marriage into 2014 when he went for further studies in Singapore for 2 years. When he returned, his wife refused to join him at their matrimonial home in Mombasa.
You know, matters of marriage are matters that are really difficult to discuss.
Very.
I mean, what people say and what really happened, well, it's a pity.
Yep.
But by the time they both agree, because you both have to agree, by the time they've agreed to separate, they must have their reasons which they haven't
has reached
actually
that
told
point.
us. Yes, they have.
It has reached that point.
Yes.
I think the thing that, it comes out here because this is a bishop. and
bishops
his
tend
wife,
to be human beings.
Yeah, and his wife, who's
Generally.
a pastor. And generally, they're human beings.
Yes.
Who have cancelled very many people who are going before marriage.
I believe they will be in an even better position to counsel people.
This time, right?
Yes, given what they have gone through and the experience they have gone through, this has definitely tested their faith and the understanding and the living of it. I believe if they continue with their bishopry works, I am certain that they will be, in my mind, a far, far better position to actually help people who are in that problem. They know what got them there, so they will know what to avoid to get people people who are heading that particular direction. Yes. Right. Now,
Yep.
let me tell you something which I find interesting. Okay? You know, we keep discussing things that happen abroad, things that happen, but we never really discuss what happens with our neighbors, just next door. Is there anything interesting happening next door? Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi?
Somalia.
Well, apart from the fact that Ebola has killed over 2,000 people in DRC,
Yeah.
and right now that we, in the northeastern part of the country, we have an outbreak of cholera, a serious one. That falls in the realm of bad news, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
It does.
Okay, so we will leave that alone then.
Yeah.
Anything interesting happening with our neighbors?
Maybe just up north towards Egypt.
What's that?
And Du will tell us about this later, but just in the headlines.
Yeah, another revolution is happening in Egypt right now, and they're looking to oust the president, who's now been accused, or allegations being brought against him, of corruption, grand corruption, and having put in austerity measures for the country. There's still quite a number of young people in the country who are suffering from what they call poverty, and they want him out, basically.
So who's demonstrating this time?
It's another spring. It's another revolution. It's the younger people, the younger population in the country are actually demonstrating. They're revolting. It's beyond, demonstrations. It's actually a revolt, and it's all started with the very famous social media that we use now. But it has made its way, and it's actually they've made their way back into Tahrir Square. So. It'll be interesting to see the details of it and what happens thereafter. But yes, another revolt is happening, and let's see what it will bring.
How long has El-Sisi been? Has he been in power?
Since 2013, and he hopes to be there till 2030, and has amended the constitution to allow him do just so.
To stay in power till 2030.
So he's been in power for 6 years now.
So far, yes.
Okay. All right, let's see how this unfolds. shall we?
It's a strong man, right?
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. Yes, he is a strong man. But let's see how this unfolds.
So, coming back here, Treasury has mopped up 78 billion shillings from state agencies. The Treasury has collected about that money, excess cash from state corporations. Acting National Treasury Cabinet Secretary Ukur Yatani says most of the corporations had unlawfully been retaining the money. What is unlawfully retaining money? According to the law, these agencies are supposed to write a check to the government, but they are not doing that. So they are collecting money and they are keeping it in their accounts instead of actually forwarding it to the government.
Oh.
Yep.
By the way, did you know that... anyway, Eric, continue that before I ask if you didn't know what I was going to ask if you knew.
So the Kenya Bureau of Standards has surrendered 1.5 billion. Kenya National Highways Authority has also surrendered a sizable amount of money. These are the agencies that are supposed to be sending money. So they're collecting money, fees and all. And, for example, Kenha gets fees from advertising on the highways. Of course, KEBS, you apply for licenses, you apply for KEBS certification, you apply for permits to construct and all. So they're collecting money. They're supposed to basically be remitting that money to the Treasury. But they're staying a bit longer with the cash in their accounts. And this is what Ukur Yatani is saying, 78B.
It's just hanging around, not being used.
Now, what did we know?
Did you know that one of the Nobel Prize laureates was actually a doctor in Congo? Recent one. Did you know this?
No.
Okay.
The peace winning one.
Yes. Dennis
yes.
Mukwege. Did you know
Yes,
this?
Mukwege.
Well, yes, this is good news. Nobel Prize. Now, this man came to fame because the hospital that he works in had treated over 50,000 victims of sexual violence. 50,000 over.
I like that.
Yes, but he now wants to set up a fund to help.
The same area.
Yes, and the one country that's already committed to it is France.
That's good.
Now, that's a good thing.
I think so.
That's
I
a
think
good
it's very hypocritical.
thing. Of France.
Well, considering that it's these countries that cause these atrocities in the first instance.
So they should just
they go
let
in there
things-
and they create scenarios where whole communities have to shift because there's been a direct correlation between the areas with these rich natural resources and the increase of domestic violence or sexual violence or violence against women, gender-based violence basically. So they're coming in there doing all this and then coming back and saying, well, we can help you out. It's very sinister.
Let's
They are
give you some
pledging,
cash.
if I'm to go by Njeri's narrative, they are pledging.
So it's not a narrative, it's the truth.
Narrative. They are pledging $2 million a year for 3 years. So
$2 million.
Because this is CSR. It's the same as tobacco companies then giving you health insurance sort of thing. I mean, they're the cause, and what they're doing is actually criminal. It's not even for business purposes.
tell
and
me
it's-
this crime that they commit. I want to understand it.
Okay, so you have the French and a lot of Western countries going into resource-rich countries.
Do they invade these
like the
countries
DC.
or do they?
No, what they do is they orchestrate and pay rebels to go and cause chaos in certain areas so that they can displace whole communities so that they can either mine or they can actually extract whatever minerals it is they want to extract. And the rebels go into these communities and using gender-based violence, they manage to get people to run away from that area. And there has been maps that there's a direct correlation between the areas that are most intense or richest with these resources and occurrences of gender-based violence.
Correlating.
As in, it can be mapped out and you can see. So in area A, there is, let's say, 10,000 kilos of gold. And there is 20,000 occurrences of gender-based violence. And they actually go in. It's a strategy to get people to evacuate the area. And this is all done by the West, primarily France. So by the time they're then coming in to give money to help rehabilitate these women who have undergone the gender-based violence or have been raped and so on, I think it's sick.
So they shouldn't give any money. Or the people who are being
Well,
given money
they
should not accept
shouldn't
the
be
money.
sponsoring or they shouldn't be getting involved in activities that lead to these women being raped and so on, which is what they have been doing in order to mine these resources.
Okay. So
So for them to actually come and do this as a cover-up or whatever it is, it makes it even more twisted.
it isn't an apology in your opinion, if I'm to go with the narrative. So
It's not a narrative. This is the truth. It's
But
they
narrat-
continue to do this
but
though.
Njeri narratives
It's not
are
that they've
based on
actually
the truth.
Okay.
It doesn't negate what you're saying.
I
am
think
simply
narrative
saying
lightens my
there's a-
point.
no, it doesn't. There's a
It
point.
seems to carry less
No,
weight.
It doesn't. There's a point of view that you're putting across.
Narrative is a perspective. This is not a perspective. These are facts I'm giving you.
It is a point of view because there are others who would say they are welcomed into the countries and they are doing legitimate business.
And others would
Now, that
also-
is the narrative they would want to paint.
Others
The
would
truth
also
of the
say
matter
that
is they
it's
come in
not
there and they
state-sponsored.
employ rebels.
Yes, it isn't.
It's not governments actually that are doing this.
It is
it's-
governments.
It's government. It's
businesses.
It's businesses.
It's businesses through governments. It's governments who are doing this.
Why are you not blaming the Congolese government, for instance? Because they are the ones who allow
Is there a
people in the first-
Congolese government
Yes,
per
there is.
se?
Yes, there
okay,
is.
them too. They're responsible.
Everybody.
But they're not giving money to cover it up.
Well, remember you can
Because that
download
allows
the,
it to continue
$2
as well.
million a year.
That's peanuts, by the way.
How much would be enough, would you say?
Well, they just need to stop doing what they're doing. They need to stop paying rebels
From
to
the very
displace
beginning.
people.
Yeah, very true. But then the poverty doesn't end. Let's take the view that Nigeria has taken, but does the poverty end? The damage caused? These damages require money to resolve, do they not?
and their
Yes.
immediate needs.
And
the,
their
the
immediate
people who
needs,
actually
yes.
are going to these hospitals
Yes.
need those services.
Yes.
Today.
Yes. Rebel incursions notwithstanding, women have been
Well, if they
sexually...
didn't destabilize the economy and allowed these African populations to actually mine their own resources, they would be more than capable of paying for their own hospital
This
bills and so on.
particular horse bolted.
This is
Jerry.
actually the richest country in the
Now that-
world
now that
in
we-
terms
now
of
that you
resources.
actually raised this story, right? Maybe we should actually make it now a proper story for another day, right?
Perhaps.
Looking at what governments are doing in the neighboring countries, in the neighboring, we can even focus on the DRC. what foreign governments have done in the DRC to bring down DRC.
The DRC
what are
should
the
be
impacts
our
of the DRC?
focus, but let's just look at the resources in this
And the
region.
resources
The region,
in the region.
definitely.
Yes,
You have
and
very,
the
very many
plunder.
examples.
And
Resources.
how those resources have been a curse to the people who live within the boundaries where the resources are found.
This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. We've been taking a look at what's been covered in the papers. Remember, you can download the Standard e-paper app on the Google Play Store or Apple App Store. That's the Google Play Store, Apple App Store. You can download the Standard e-paper, one standard fee, and you get all the newspapers. Good morning, 24 minutes to 7 o'clock.
How well do you know your country? Given a chance, where would you go? Not so many places, huh? Would you even know how to get there? Yes? No? Maybe? I don't know. Well, oh ye gallivanters and tourists alike, here is your chance to not only know, but also visit amazing destinations in Kenya with complete recommendations, guides, and tips on accommodation spots, wellness stops, and food joints all over Kenya. How you ask? Courtesy of the biggest locally targeted tours and travel magazine, Travelogue. Travelogue is your monthly pull-out magazine in the Standard newspaper every first Thursday of the month. With Travelogue, enjoy the beauty of life that Kenya has to offer. Visit exotic and hidden destinations, be part of amazing conservation campaigns and projects as you simply enjoy Kenya. It's our way of putting Kenya on the map. Grab your copy and be aboard the fun wagon as you improve the quality of your local travel experiences. Travelogue, Jione Kenya. Tired of living your same old life? Need to spice it up and add some flavor? Well, we can help you go from living to living it up. East Africa, are you ready to be a part of the most vibrant entertainment scene with the best, freshest music, travel tips and destinations, fashion, tech and health trends, as well as your favorite celebrities' lifestyles? Introducing your favorite entertainment magazine, Pulsar, the ultimate all-in-one guide that will give you more meaning to life. Catch up with your celebrity writers and contributors to stay up to date with what's happening around you, where and how you can be a part of all that. The lifestyle guide that has been missing in your life. Pulsar. Live it up.
98.7 Spice FM, Mombasa. Traffic.
Live sooner, drive slower, live longer, apparently, is the message that we're getting this morning. Outer Ring Road via Thika Road to town is moving along quite smoothly. All right, looking on the other side of the divide, Thika Road is already bumper to bumper this morning. After people have flown by at a few minutes to 6 o'clock, we now have the situation where traffic is now piling up. Mombasa Road madness apparently is not featuring just yet, but that will not be the situation in about an hour. Ngong Road looking good this morning. It's still clear, though a police driver is moving along while talking on his phone, probably because of the fact that the traffic is not clogged up just yet. All right, other people complaining that reporting that Mombasa Road is moving slowly. However, it is moving. Nothing major to report right about now. The situation definitely will change as we go along through the morning. Give us a call on 0719 012 600 if you see something we need to know about, and we'll share the information.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
At 21 minutes to 7 o'clock, good morning, and how are you doing? You're in the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. In the room, we have Jerry Thorne, CT Muga, Ndu Okwana, Mary Latif. We are live streaming, of course, on Facebook, Spice FM KE, on YouTube, Spice FM KE. Our frequencies 94.4 in Nairobi, 87.9 in Mombasa, 102.5 Kisumu, 96.0 Nakuru, 96.7 in Eldoret, 90.9 Nyeri, 97.6 in Malindi. And because this is Kenya's biggest conversation live, we love when you participate in the conversation. 0719 012 600. That's 0719 012 600. When you open the phone lines, let's start today's conversations. We've got a couple couple of topics coming up. One, CT Muga will be telling us about government wastage of resources, wastage of opportunities. We'll also, of course, be looking at today being Monday, Succession Mondays. And Jerry will be telling us what's on our crystal ball today. And then we'll be looking at what's happening in Egypt. We've got a revolution that's unfolding in Egypt. There are youths who are converging at Tahrir Square again to oust their new leader again. And we'll also be looking at the independence or lack thereof of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. So yes, we are coming up with a new law to reduce the number of commissioners. We've seen the CEO going to court to, claiming that he was unprocedurally dismissed. But is IEBC independent? No, it's not. CT, government is wasting a lot.
Well, if we
or
look
not?
at what our media reports, if you talk about mainstream media, and then you look at social media, and you look at the conglomeration of all media, you will get the impression that there is wastage. But this concept gains currency when you juxtapose it. For instance, if you look at what appeared in The Nation and on many Twitter messages, that the government of Kenya spends something like 3.7 billion every year. 3.7 billion every year, according to the Interior Ministry alone, on parties and receptions. And then you juxtapose it against the number of Kenyans, 6 million facing starvation, and the number increasing in drought-prone areas. This looks like wastage, but then you again have to juxtapose it again against what was budgeted for these. If it is within budget lines, if they are spending money that is budgeted for, the argument should be, should they have budgeted less? But when you say entertainment for what? What is it that they do with it? There is a lot that isn't easily answered when you look at this. But it gets even more complicated when you look at what the government budgets every year. It's easy to criticize. It's very, very easy to criticize a budget process if you don't fully understand it. When you do, it's comprehensive. It is clear. Now, in my opinion, the wastage doesn't take place in what we seem to spend, whether it's in dam projects that never really were, or things that appear to happen but never do. No. The real wastage, in my opinion, is in the opportunities that we have that we never take advantage of. We talk about power. We talk about not having enough of it. And yet, the one source of power that we have in abundance is the sun. We don't harvest it enough. We have wind. We don't harvest it enough. That, in my opinion, is where the wastage takes place. The government wastes our opportunities, the opportunities to actually make progress and to do meaningful things that would help the lives of millions of Kenyans. That is what they do. They waste our opportunities.
Apart from power, what other examples do you have of wasted opportunities by the government?
What I'm talking about, the power and wind are examples of opportunities that the government has for improving the lives of Kenyans once and for all, to genuinely improve it. Why am I saying this? When you have low-cost power, it means you can encourage investors to come into your country to do the sort of things, to create industrialization that enables people to get employed. Now, we discussed industrialization, one of the pillars the other day, and we spoke about how it is this one aspect of the big four can actually help solve literally all the problems you're talking about. One. So, you cannot look at power and not talk about how it would be a key contributor to transforming all these things that we keep talking about: healthcare, employment, unemployment, lack of this, lack of the other. And remember, power is not just something you generate for yourself. Power is a resource you sell. And when you have it in abundance, my friend, you are able to do everything that you wanted to do and you could not do simply because your cost of doing business was too high. And this, but I'm focusing. Power is the one thing that guarantees that we are often kept out of some of these markets because we're just expensive to do business with. It's just as simple as that. Now, those are opportunities. When I talk about power, all these things the government keeps prattling about, this is the other. This one thing could help them solve very many of these problems, but they do not. That is wastage of proportional amounts. Wastage.
And this is what the government should be doing. The government should be looking at, the opportunities, untapped opportunities, and come up with ways of tapping those opportunities.
Yes, they should.
But we are focusing, just like KRA, on just looking at what is available currently and trying to milk as much as possible.
And tax the living daylights out of people. Just tax. There is no economy on this planet that has ever grown through taxation. Never, ever, ever, ever. And are we trying to invent this particular wheel? We are not going to succeed, certainly. how do you explain a situation where you actually have what it takes? You have it. It exists. All that is required is for you to exploit it so that all these things, the ripple, call it ripple effect, conward, call it upward spiraling positive effect, use whatever
Trickle
economic
down.
term. Yes, but we have it. The one thing we have, countries are moving from using coal. China, 60% of China's power is from coal. They are moving to solar. Why? Because they're realizing that you can actually spend enough to ensure that this natural resource that you have meets the needs of the country. We have more solar power than China.
Are you saying that the government has not done enough? Because if you look at it in the last 15 years,
Eric, I don't want you to go further. They've done nothing. I
Done
don't want
nothing.
you. Yes. Nothing here means if the lives of your people are not changed by your efforts, then you've done nothing.
so let's look at it.
All
this
the
way.
noise and all the things, you can say you've built this, you've done the other, but if it isn't changing people's lives, it amounts to nothing.
Let's look at power. So in the last, let's say, 15 years, right, we've had investment in geothermal. Now we're tapping geothermal. Now geothermal is a huge mix. It's more than 20% of our electricity mix.
So,
We've got Lake Turkana wind power project, right, which is contributing quite a substantial, amount to the national grid. We've got Garissa. We have a solar power plant that's actually been put up, and others. We've got the wind project that's coming up in the Aberdare in Nyandarua. Those are things that are actually happening in terms of
Eric,
this investment, not really wasted opportunities.
And this change that you speak of that is so profound that warrants your attention, what is it?
What do you mean?
What significant
Have we seen the effect on
Yes.
the people
Number
of the
one,
country by these projects that have been implemented?
Number
I
one,
think that's the question.
despite going through periods of long seasons without rain, this time we actually do not see power rationing.
And the cost of power, Eric?
The cost of power, the cost of power,
You're going to fumble on that one because the cost of power, the cost of power has not significantly reduced. Or other people who have experienced a nice, massive reduction in power costs.
no, it's not a silver
Eric,
bullet.
let me paint this picture for you. Imagine a situation. What does the average family say, for instance, pay for power? 100 shillings, 200? Let me peg it at 200
Per day.
Power what?
Yes.
Per day.
per day. Okay.
Yes.
Since we're having a nice discussion here, let's peg it at 50 shillings a day. Just for purposes of discussion,
Yes.
all right?
Yes.
But it's 7 days a week. So in 7 days, you'll have spent 350 shillings, isn't
Yes.
it? So in 1 month, you'll have spent 1,400 shillings, isn't it?
Yes.
What I'm talking about is getting to the point where that family spends 500 shillings on power.
Per month.
Yes. And I'm saying it can be done because the resources that you need to tap to be able to do that, we have.
They're there. They are available.
We have.
And that is what the government is doing.
Are they?
It's tapping into that.
Are they?
Yes.
Eric,
Last-
when you
last year-
tell me
last year
that
the
you
wind power
have
project
solar
came to life.
farms in the whole of the Taita Taveta area and in every county, when you tell me of solar farms everywhere, then I'll say, oh my goodness, the government is doing something because the effect we're speaking of will be felt immediately.
But it's tectonic, city. So you start with one. You started with the Lake Turkana one in Loyangalani. So the whole wind farm in Loyangalani, then you see, all right, so this is working. In fact, the whole wind farm in Loyangalani is generating half its capacity. So let's test.
Why do
let's
we keep
see.
making excuses for the government?
We're not making excuses. I'm just
You
saying.
are. You are. Eric,
Just because
if
I agree with what you're saying, I'm just showing you that there is a
you're
step.
you're not agreeing enough.
I'm agreeing with what you're saying. I'm just saying there are steps. If you
Eric, on
look
this,
back, you'll
on
see
this one,
there are
I'm not
steps.
taking prisoners. Look, the wastage that we see are from the scandals that come out in this country. You tell me, these projects were begun God knows how many years ago, okay? Money was actually spent and all we got was wide open spaces, which we had before, so we really weren't given anything, isn't it? But the money disappeared. I am saying you have a situation where if that particular money was put to something you can see easily, forget dams, forget the solar farms, wind farms, these aren't complicated things. They don't even interfere with what happens on a daily basis with the people around them. What they can do, we know. Why is the government not focusing on something that they can actually do readily? It can be done. Why get into complicated, expensive projects that which are supposed to produce the same thing, same thing as this power, same. At the end, why?
I think they need to privatize for us to see or to fully utilize all our resources. Of course, they're currently nationalized, and these schemes you talk about, they're there to, of course, generate electricity into the national grid, which is then given to us by Kenya KPLC. Have I said it right?
Yes.
KPLC.
Yeah.
And of course, because of lack of competition and so on, you see a lot of incompetence, whether it's in provision of services itself or the actual services that we receive in terms of the quality of services. But very importantly, we don't optimize the use, because it's not a profit making, or rather there's no competition. I think if competition was introduced, we would see a very different industry when it comes to power generation, and it would be so much so, including competitive pricing that would allow for what CT is talking about, which is foreign direct investment or bringing people over to the country to do business, whether it's factories and so on. Although we do have the EPZ, which I think electricity or power rates are slightly lower to try and encourage Kenyans, the EPZ being the export processing zone, whereby if you're looking to export any goods, if you're in manufacturing, the rates, the electric rates, I think are a little bit low. I'm not sure by exactly how much. So there's attempts, but they're lame attempts, and I don't think they're authentic attempts. They're sort of paying lip service, and this is what we're going to do.
It's a multi-billion shilling project, the Lake Turkana Wind Power Project. It's actually not owned by the government. It's private, right? It's just that the government had to give guarantees, because you're going to buy off this power and sell it to Kenya,
which is government owned.
No, it's listed. And then there's the wind power projects. The wind power projects are also independent. Apart from the one at Ngong, which is actually run by government, the others are not.
Okay,
the solar one, the solar one so far is government.
I think once we privatize KPLC, we'll see a big difference in the industry.
It is private.
KPLC.
Yeah, it's listed in the stock exchange.
Okay, if you say so. Well, nobody else is allowed to provide electricity.
But it's true. You have a point that you're making. In terms of,
I always have a point, Eric.
Yeah,
always.
Yeah, you always have a point. So I've never disputed that. Everybody always has a point. In terms of how we
what Jerry is telling you, she's not everybody. Please get it. Yes.
Jerry just
he goes on and he goes, well, you're kind of right. I'm always right.
It would be interesting to know. I mean, I keep saying that, development, we can have all these projects, but if it's not felt at the level of the people, then it is not development. We can say that we have all instituted a lot of projects here and there, the things that we've done, but it would be interesting to know then, has there been a change for the people? And when we talk about a change for the people, then we're talking about, are the prices reduced in terms of what people have to pay for power? For example, if these projects have been instituted and we have certain things that then now run across the country, do we see where we are paying, be it 10,000 shillings for power as a small family unit, or even the 1,000 shillings that CT gave an example of? Are we seeing a reduction of those costs because of these projects that have been implemented? If we are not, or are we seeing, better service of these costs so we don't have power cuts, etc., or are we seeing that we're paying less for it? Because if we don't see those changes, then we cannot say that those projects have had an effect on us as a country, as the people who are actually the end users of these projects or the beneficiaries of these projects. If we don't see such things implemented, then we cannot say that these things have actually come in for the benefit of the country. Then in terms of development, we're still where we were before these projects were instituted. If there are places or if there are pilot projects where they have been, then we do not know of such. But it would be interesting to know the effect that these projects that you've talked about, the wind power out of the energy power project out of Lake Turkana, the wind projects that you talked about in different parts of the country. If we don't see that they have been felt or that it's making one life better, in one way or another, then we can't say that they're actually been used. We looked at projects the other day, like the Galana. I can't say the second, Kulalu. And we say that, okay, this was a fantastic project that was instituted, but that we've not been able to see the ripple effect. So we're then at zero. We're where we started off. We spent all this money, we got all the support, and we got the supporters actually leaving. We're still at zero. So we have all these opportunities, but we're not making use of them. We have the potential to be able to do great, fantastic things in terms of development in this country, but we are wasting the opportunities that we have. Because if we don't see that they're actually affecting life, 1, to 3, then really we are where we started off. The billions have basically gone down the drain. It sounds like huge wastage, but that's just the case. That's where we are.
So you're saying also you're agreeing with CT that the government is wasting the potential.
Unless you can show,
Basically,
unless we can show clear examples of where the people have then been able to benefit, because I wouldn't understand why a government would institute such projects if it was not for the people to be able to benefit. So unless we can see clear trajectory and upward in terms of benefit for the people, then yes, absolutely, we've wasted the opportunities, and then we continue to, invest time and resources in things that are not going to help the people. Sure, the intention would have been set from the beginning, but the intention then has to be manifested in reality. If it is not, then we've wasted time.
Damn the intention. Look, this isn't something complicated, all right? Ask yourself a simple question. Why is it that the food we eat is expensive, the processed food? Because the production of it is expensive.
The cost of production is very high.
Exactly. Now, if you reduced power, the ripple effect of that reduction would be profound. Everything that you buy would, with time, become less expensive because it is not expensive to produce. The money you have, if I paid less for water because ensuring that water gets to me and the source that use power is reduced, the money that is earned would be able to go further.
Exactly. You're able to do other things then with the money that you save.
You're able to do a lot more with what you have. Now, that is how you enrich your people. But if all these things that we're talking about, and we're talking about intentions, all we see is the cost of things increasing. Nothing goes down. So they're improving our lives by making us poorer.
Exactly, because this is what I'm saying. If you come up with a power project, for example, then I still have to pay 10,000 shillings a month for power in my home. How are we really helping?
If you paid less,
I think the effect so far. I'm just saying. I think the effect so far has been containment of the cost. Because in the absence of having those renewable sources actually adding into the grid, you'd have had the thermal generation. And thermal means that you're actually dependent on the cost of the international cost of crude oil. You see? So that would keep fluctuating the power. Now, the power prices. Now we've contained it. We know that more than a quarter of our electricity is coming from geothermal, which is ours, which is coming from the ground. Another percentage is coming from wind, which is coming from, it's a renewable source. Another percentage is now going to get into the grid from Garissa, solar. So it's contained the cost.
What we're saying, so basically containing the cost is
the next thing that's going to happen is now the cost will start coming down once you increase these projects.
When were these projects begun, Eric?
Which one? Like the geothermal one? That's what I was saying, in the last 15 years.
Oh, I see. So we are supposed to wait for half a century before we see the results of these things? Or let's throw in a century just for good measure to ensure that these people have enough time to actually help. What is it? 15 years down the line.
The life of two governments, yes.
How many Kenyans can call in and tell us that they've had their power costs reduced or they felt reduction?
Not many.
If it isn't being felt, then it isn't being done, sir. It isn't. It's really not a complicated issue.
Exactly.
Yes.
If we're looking at a situation where we use the 1,500 shillings that we've talked about. If I remain spending the 1,500 shillings, then really there's nothing more that I can do. If all we're saying is that in the last 10 years, in the last 15 years, is made sure that I don't spend more than 1,500 shillings, it really doesn't do anything for me. What I'm trying to make sure that I do is that within that 1,500 shillings, I have power, and then I'm able to do other things with the 1,500 shillings. With that 1,500 shillings, maybe I spend 500 shillings, and then with 1,000 shillings, I'm able to do more. Then we can say is where we are reaching actual development of this project.
If you agree with what CT Muga is pushing this morning, that the government is actually wasting our resources, we'd love you to call in and share your opinion. 0719-012-600. That's 0719-012-600. It's coming up to 7 o'clock. This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. CT Muga, Jerry Thorne, Ndu Oko, and I'm Eric Latif. And this is the conversation that we're having this morning. CT Muga is saying, well, the government is not just wasting the money that we have budgeted for. The government is actually also doing a bigger thing, which is wasting the opportunities that we have as a country. Do you agree? Do you not agree? The conversation also continues on Facebook and Twitter. Good morning.
Spice up your life. traffic.
All right, looking at the situation on Jogo Road, for example, not much of an issue as you approach the City Stadium roundabout heading into the CBD. Ngong Road is very clear. We are leading towards the Dagoretti corner. It's moving very well. We must understand that there's construction going on that road, and so we hope that you will understand as you get into a traffic block that it is because of the construction, and traffic will not move as quickly as more vehicles get on the road. Juja Road is very clear. You get to work in less than 30 minutes had you woken up. But now, as you're getting around to 7 o'clock, we're going to have more vehicles on the road. And of course, that will compound the traffic issue. Thika Road on a Monday morning is already full and jam-packed, coming out of Garden City, heading towards the Allsops Junction and getting to the Pangani Underpass. We're going to have some issues there this morning. Kiamba Road is moving smoothly, but you get to the Thika Superhighway, you will get into some traffic, and that is understood. It's a Monday morning and everybody is on the road getting to work, getting to their business. Mombasa Road, we understand, is also bumper to bumper, but is moving as you get to the Nyayo Stadium roundabout, trying to get into the CBD. Give us a call or send us a message, 0719 012 600. Let's see if I can keep you moving this Monday morning.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have Jerry Thorne, lawyer, political strategist, an insider in the corridors of power, ready to take on any side of the debate with her signature eloquence and grit. C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Indeed, the only way to start your day. It's 2 minutes past 7 o'clock. Good morning, and how are you doing? The Situation Room this morning. Everybody's in the house. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Spice FM KE on Facebook, Spice FM KE on YouTube, Spice FM KE on Twitter. We're live streaming there. www.spicefm.co.ke. On 97.6, we are in Malindi. 90.9, Nyeri. 96.7, Eldoret. 96.0, Nakuru. 102.5, Kisumu. 87.9 in Mombasa. 94.4 in Nairobi. Elevated conversations, mature elevated conversations. That's what we're having this morning as well. So the government is not just wasting the resources that it has, the government is wasting our opportunities, which is even worse, according to C.T. Muga.
Yes. You know, it's always good to get into various cultures are things that we acquire over time. And this culture of finding excuses for the government misdeeds, well, you know, they've tried. You know, in the last 5 years, they've actually put up this. In the last 5 years, you know, they've planned for this. And we're hoping that we will see results of this in the next few years. Bank. That doesn't cut it. These things are budgeted for so that the individual citizen can benefit directly. Not vicariously, directly. It's not, I don't have to benefit through somebody else. I need to benefit myself. That person who lives in this slum that you refer to needs to have electricity. They need to, we don't want situations where they keep burning down because someone left some naked fire. We don't want a situation where someone can't afford food. All this money that goes to waste that we speak of, which I'm calling the symptom, they tell you that the money is available. The money is available. If that money is available and it's put to the use that I'm saying, I'm being prescriptive here, yes. And because I'm not involved, I may be saying it and I may make it sound a lot easier. Well, that's my job, to make it sound easier. But it should be done. All these things that we talk about wouldn't be at the stage they are at. They may not even be fully eliminated, but they would be reduced so significantly that we would not be talking about becoming a so-called middle-income country by taxing the citizenry to death. It doesn't work that way.
I go back to KPLC and the monopoly it has in the industry as a distributor. So it's crucial that whoever is in charge of the licensing sorts that out, because you need to create competition within such a market, and the fact that they have no competition means they can charge what they want, because the government with the rural electrification program has managed to get electricity to every corner of Kenya. Every Kenyan has electricity in their house, but we go back to the question of can they afford it? Now, who sets the prices? KPLC. And if they have no competition whatsoever, which is also government control, because it's down to the government to issue licenses for anybody who's distributing the electricity. So that's again another government failure there. I think if they could pass a bill that allows for other players to come in, and if they do make the environment conducive for these other players, given that there's been a monopoly, I think we would see a big change in terms of how much we pay for our electricity, and of course in turn, you know, the fact that we can then attract manufacturers and so on.
In terms of water provision, well, yes, there are wasted opportunities, right? Water harvesting, creation of dams, and all that, and drilling of boreholes and actually managing those boreholes. Because if you look at
Eric, let's even forget the dams for a second.
Yeah.
Just forget the dams. Huh? Modern technology right now enables you to understand not just where there are mineral deposits, but even water deposits. You don't have to keep digging to find it out. You can have a fairly accurate idea where you can find it. Okay, so this expensive process of building dams, harvesting, it rains a great deal in this country. Have you ever seen an emphasis, an all-out government attempt to ensure that people actually get into the process of
harvesting water?
Yes, these areas that are known to be drought-prone, they get rainfall. It's not as though in their lifetime they've never received rainfall. They do get rainfall. What do they do with that rain? It's a resource. We don't work for it. It just arrives at us. There are other places that get more rain than they know what to do with. So, if there is no government effort to harness this thing which exists, and water is crucial to our lives, it's fundamental, it's basic.
It is life.
So
as it said.
this thing that you're telling us, or this thing that the government wants us to believe that they are working towards the betterment of the lives of the citizen, what on earth are they talking about? What on earth? You're talking about boreholes. Boreholes can be dug. You don't even need, this isn't witchcraft. This isn't something that you have to dance around some banana polo, some tree that never dies. No, technology will tell you where the water sources are. Dig it. Make sure your people have it.
Where did you get that from? Dancing around the banana tree. Why banana tree?
I'm thinking of something ridiculous. Yes.
to go along with the ridiculousness of
Yes,
why.
but I'm giving whoever's listening the opportunity to think of something else they could dance around. I mean, choose the plant.
Why
It doesn't have to be banana.
cassava?
All right, make it cassava, or even a neem tree, or even a baobab tree if you like big trees. I mean, I'm saying we are discussing things, and it's as though there's some hidden esoteric things that you require some profound power from external source to be able to understand. These are such basic things. There's no focus on it. There's no government drive on it. And then someone wants to stand up and talk to us about development, and then talk to us about how they want to help the country and how the citizens will benefit. Surely.
So you're saying, by the way, City, if I hear you, and you're saying, yes, we've seen the headlines all the time. The headlines keep talking about how the government has wasted, especially looking at last week's headlines, how the presidency has wasted money, has spent so much money, how the Interior Ministry has spent so much money. We are looking at the wrong things.
Yes.
We're basically looking at, we should not be focusing our eyes there, because we are basically just being...
That's government-sponsored entertainment.
That's entertainment.
Yes,
We should
like
be
if you look
focusing
at the
on
headline
what
of the
to be done.
Standard, Matiang'i Ruto ale clash of a land saga. You tell me, when you think of the millions being spent there, and tell me what would happen if some of that money was put to these simple things, let's start with providing citizens with water. Just water. Start there. Forget electricity for the time being. Water.
Portable water. at
Yes,
your homestead.
and think of every other saga that we've looked at. A 3.02 trillion budget, okay? Ask yourself how much of it was focused on providing solar. Just focus on it. How much was put in for providing water? These are the things that people need, man. The superhighways are lovely, and infrastructure helps spur development, and we thank the government for doing something about this, for continuing the projects that was begun in the previous administration of Kibaki.
But
These simple things, what's so complicated about it? Every other day we are treated to something or the other.
let me open up the phone lines. 0719-012-600. 0719-012-600. Also, the conversation is on our social media handles, Twitter, Spice FM KE, and Facebook, Spice FM KE. City Muge is telling us, let's stop focusing on the headlines. oh, the government has spent this much and wasted this much. Let's actually think of the wasted potential, because that's where the bigger failures are. The bigger failure is the government is actually wasting our potential. Why don't we have potable water in our homes? Why don't we have lower electricity prices? Why don't we have better food security? This is because of wasted opportunities by the government. What do you think? 0719 012 600. You're saying this is an issue of development, that unless it trickles down, unless the people who it's meant to benefit actually feel it, then there's no development.
No, there isn't. I mean, there's none whatsoever. What is it for then? If you're
You know
going
this
to
same
institute,
argument-
if you're going to institute something in the very beginning, why are you doing it? Why do we continue to operate within these walls if we know that who is it supposed to benefit? Why are we doing it? To have then said that I started this project for what? There must be an end. There must be an expected end. Somebody must be at the benefiting end of all of this. If you say that we're going to start all these power projects, for what? Water projects, for what? Agricultural projects, for what? So that we can lower the cost of food, so that people can buy food at a lower price, so that we can make sure that there's potable water in every home, so we can make sure that your power bill actually goes down and then you can do more with your shilling. Is that not what we're talking about? If development cannot be felt by the individual citizen, then it is not development. It is just officials touting development projects and their agenda. That's all it is. It's touting, but we're not getting onto a destination. We are not.
The impact must be felt, no doubt. But it's interesting you raise the question of infrastructure over some of these projects that you talk about. I'm a keen proponent of infrastructure development before any social pillar development, because infrastructure development, of course, brings social economic development, which allows you to be able to buy and sustain yourself, as opposed to relying on government for the provision of these services, or hoping for government to lower the prices for you to be able to afford them. By building roads and so on, it creates a conducive environment for you to perhaps engage in business or what have you, which then in turn allows you to be able to acquire these services. So I wouldn't put these developments above infrastructure development, because I think by creating a conducive business environment, not only do you then create jobs and so on, but you create money, so to speak, socioeconomic development, which allows people to then sustain themselves, as opposed to trying to lower the cost of these services so that they're affordable. We can actually empower the people so that they can actually afford them.
So goes the economic theory on development, yes. And in this country, we've seen that infrastructure has actually changed many lives.
It has. Look at Thika Road, the impact of that on
I
lives.
am going beyond that and saying, if you, good word, juxtapose, put side by side, the money that seems to keep getting lost, and the things that you could do alongside this. Who says when you're building roads you can't provide water? Where does it say that? Where does it say that when you are building roads you can also not ensure the electricity is cheap? Where does it say that? Given the amount of water we have in this country, we should be paying something like 1 cent for a litre.
How much are you paying? What is your water bill? Isn't it set at like 1,000 shillings a month? Irregardless of what you then use?
I stopped trying to
metered.
figure that out because I can't figure it out.
Yeah.
The number of people live in my house have not increased.
But the bills keep changing.
Yes, I stopped trying to. It's like with electricity. The times you ask, did we at some point open some mini factory in this house that I'm unaware of?
I think KPLC is able
Concurrent
to take
Yes,
advantage
yes.
of
Or
it
are there
because
some
we don't
months when this
understand it.
factory
We don't
functions and the
understand
months
their
doesn't
billing.
function? Because you're given a bill and you actually gasp and you wonder what on earth is going on here.
And then they've got this thing that they say, all right, so if you're disputing the bill, first clear the bill.
Clear this one now.
And then let's talk.
But that's when Jerry's right about a monopoly. These guys will keep playing these games. But again, the government allows this nonsense.
The government not allows it. It creates a situation where that is the case,
And
because they're the ones who regulate.
Exactly, Jerry? Allowing is...
No. There's allowing
another
and there's
name?
encouraging. There's two different things. We both have children. There's things you allow your children to do, and there's things you encourage your children to do. I have an 18-year-old. I allow him to go out at night clubbing, but I don't encourage him to do so. So they're very different. allowing and encouraging.
Synonymous,
Thank
my
you.
dear.
No.
Because one
No,
gives
no,
way
no,
to
no,
the
no.
other, and the other also
No,
gives
no,
way
no.
to
What
Sims.
what the
So the
what,
government does not encourage Kenya Power to do what it does, but it allows it.
No, it
Okay.
encourages it
Why
because
why don't I take
there's
Njeri's
a
argument?
body that regulates these guys who distribute
And
electricity.
who owns this
or-
body that regulates
It's
it?
the government.
It's regulating itself.
So what that body does is that it's only licenses KPLC. So it's encouraging this monopoly. It's not just allowing it. It's encouraging it because it could actually go the other way and encourage other players to come into the market, which it has done. Or I know there's other players trying to come into the market, but there's a lot more it could do. So for me, it's the government. That's why I say KPLC is government in essence.
We are not disagreeing. We're not disagreeing. I was merely saying that we seem to distinguish that when the government does this, then this ought to happen. And I'm saying all these things that are supposed to benefit the citizenry can all be done at the same time.
You made a good point the other day, CT. We were having a chat outside work, as we do. And you said, with all this money being stolen and we're still doing okay, can you imagine how we would be doing if all these funds weren't being stolen? And of course, we don't even know how much
Not really.
more is being stolen. What we know is what's in the media, what's being reported, what's being investigated. So, and we're still doing seemingly okay.
Seemingly.
Yeah, seemingly. I mean, we're still there. The economy
Kenya's
hasn't imploded, and we're still there. So you were saying, can you imagine
What would be able to
what
achieve?
would be able to achieve if we could actually put all our resources, including our revenue, as generated by taxpayers?
It's true that
Where
we can,
would we
yeah,
be?
we can
Is that what you're getting at today?
Jerry, that's what I'm getting at.
right.
I'm talking about a situation where you have people in power and in authority and everything that pertains to ensuring their citizens live well, and they're scuttling that very opportunity.
I think what's a little bit more frustrating is the fact that it is clear to those who are in a position to who establish these projects, it is clear to them that we could actually do so much more. I'll skip a few steps west. For example, if you look at Nigeria was able to basically make almost every home in the country own a generator. Okay? You buy a generator, obviously, because the national government is not able to supply you with power. So every home owns a generator. But it is interesting to note that just northeast is the smaller country of Niger. Now, Nigeria provides power for Niger's entire national grid. Entire. So the entire country buys power from Nigeria. Is able to provide power for an entire country and make money from it. However, does not have the will to provide power for its citizens, to the point that you have international companies who are in the business of manufacturing generators domiciled in the country.
It's a big business.
It's a huge, thriving business. So then I go back to the point that, you know what, we can say everything that we want to say, but you know that the national government is able to do certain things, but just do not. We can come up with all sorts of fancy projects and name them all sorts of wonderful things: power project, power initiative, this, that, and the other wonderful thing. But again, if it is not being felt by the people, and then for us to see that these monies are then available for you to then actually fund an entire country, not city, not town, country, with citizens who operate in sovereignty. You can do that for another nation. Why would you then not be able to do it for your people? Again, it's not that it is not seen, it can be done. So the opportunities come and they're wasted. We have so much more that it is even superfluous that we can do for another country, but we still do not want to do for ourselves. If we start up these projects and it is not felt by the individuals, then it is an exercise in futility. We're wasting our time, we're wasting our resources, we're wasting our opportunities.
Who benefits from this, from the wasted opportunities? Is it people who are individuals who are in government?
Jerry, you want to say something?
You just don't want to answer that question.
No, I
Yes.
will get to it because you took a deep breath, which portends deep thoughts.
Because I think it goes without saying that there's, of course, people at the helm that do benefit from this scenario. And that's the problem. You talk about, the opportunities that we're wasting on making Kenya better for all Kenyans. But it's because at the top, people are enjoying it as it is. If it's education, they won't invest that much in it because they can afford to take their kids to outside the country. If it's medical, they don't invest because they can afford to go outside the country. So they don't have that invested will, so to speak, for themselves. They're fine, and there is an elite that don't actually need the system to be working. It doesn't matter whether it works or not. And sadly, this elite or this cluster of people are also responsible for some of these things that we're talking about. So I guess that's how the cookie crumbles, really. I mean, that's the way it is.
You see, that's
sadly.
the point, Jerry. I have refused. What I'm doing this morning is telling you that I have refused to accept that position that this is how it happens. I've refused.
Well, that's down to the voter, isn't it?
No, it isn't. I am the voter. It's down
Right.
to me.
And you're
Okay.
refusing.
So you,
I-
with all this knowledge, find this very important. There's a lot of people who don't mind somebody who comes in and just takes out of the coffers.
It's because
No,
of,
hold on. I haven't finished my point, CT.
well, when if you begin a
This-
discussion
no,
on
no,
a
no,
false
I have,
premise,
no, I haven't.
am I supposed to allow you to just continue on a false premise? And you've clearly anyway.
No. I was actually telling you how knowledgeable and discerning you are, and what a great voter you are, and how you contribute massively to the
Okay,
electorate.
here we
Because
go,
you're very
here we go.
knowledgeable,
Okay,
and
carry on.
Here comes
you
the
know,
clapback.
Uh-huh.
you know
Here we go.
exactly what you're talking about as a voter.
And those
Now,
who
there's a lot of people who don't know that this is how it works, but they're cheated by 200 shillings, or is it 50 shillings, just before the elections, and they put their tick on the ballot for the wrong person, who will come and actually just, this wastage you're talking about, be fully responsible. Should that voter have the same voting rights as you to bring these people in?
I knew this was coming in.
Right.
If I could, for once, let me support you a little bit here. The argument that has been had in some media quarters is that one of the reasons why China is able to do what it has been able to do with power is because of the dictatorship angle. Yes, they don't go around asking your opinion. No, they make a decision and they do it.
Because everybody has an opinion. It's like everybody has an opinion, basically.
So they have this opinion on your behalf, and then then they tell you this is what we are going to do, and they do it. In that respect, Yeri, you do have a point, but you know very well that the matter of democracy, there's always a larger discussion. Look at our national debt. It currently stands at 5.4 trillion. Okay, it means we owe. How you owe is you borrow. That's how it works, isn't it? What-
There's no country which has reached economic development or does development without borrowing. So
That is precisely
before
the
you build
point.
on a false premise.
Before I continue on this premise that you don't actually fully understand, let me explain it further.
Please do.
What was this money put to? Because if you do have 5.4 a trillion, it means there's something that you must have done with it. And if we had, then the net result, or what was promised, paying this money back would not be the teeth-pulling exercise it's turning out to be now.
Yep.
It's gone to infrastructure projects, which of course, no, it
It's
has.
what it's called,
gone
is
into
it?
the SGR. Absolutely, it's gone
And
into
it's gone
the
into the
SGR.
two
It's gone
dams,
into roads.
the
It's
two
on
dams,
infrastructure
and then some
projects.
more dams. Jerry,
Now, no. My point was, infrastructure projects do take long to materialize.
infrastructure
they take a
projects
bit
which
longer.
don't exist.
Well, the
7
ones
years
I'm
down the
talking
line, nothing
about
has happened,
do.
and you're telling us it's
No,
going
there's been
well,
theft. I don't doubt that. With the dams and some other projects, there has been theft. But you're saying, all this debt we have, where has it gone? Why are we not feeling the impact? And I'd like to argue that we are feeling the impact.
Yes, we
but
are.
also
Negative
not,
impact,
No.
definitely.
Not as much as we will be in the future, because infrastructure projects take a little bit longer to crystallize and for people to feel the benefits of those projects. So, for instance, we're now seeing the benefits of Thika Road. For instance, you've got the property prices around. They shot up. You've got businesses that also could set up shop there that previously couldn't. So there is some benefits coming from it, but you've seen how long it's taken us to feel those. And it's the same with all infrastructure projects. But we need to borrow in order to build an infrastructure. So
Did I say you shouldn't borrow? No.
what are you saying, though?
I said we have borrowed, we owe.
However, we've not been able to see where this money went.
Not only that, we are having difficulties paying it. That's all I'm trying to tell you. Everything that you say is how you argue for building the road so that it becomes an economic venture that is able to pay for itself. It's solid argument. You can't argue against it. The road was built. We saw it built. We have other projects that we've been told this money was borrowed for. Fine. First of all, where are they? That's number one.
What, the project?
These projects, these many projects we keep talking about, where are they?
They all seem to be in the
what are they
Rift
doing?
Valley.
If we look at it, just an example of this whole dams as just an example. If we look at the dams and what they were meant for in the beginning, if we look at it through a development lens, what they were meant for in the beginning was to then provide an adequate water source that people would then be able to use for things like irrigation, for agriculture, now to be able to maybe essentially pipe the water into homes, etc., which is what dams essentially are for, right? So one dam project was cancelled, put on hold until further notice. The other dam, which was then its development allowed to continue, was seen that it would then be completed at 7 billion shillings less than what it was actually targeted for in the first place. Now, let's pretend that these interventions did not come in place, that now these dams were completed, money spent. Do you think we would have been able to see that 7 billion shillings that was essentially saved would not have come out at the end of the day? We would have wasted 7 billion shillings on this dam. It would have been completed, but here we are looking at a situation where the experts have said, the technocrats have said, yes, we can complete this dam at less this amount. So again, we have a situation where funds would have been wasted, again, opportunities wasted, and we would have had the same thing having been done with more money than was necessary. So we are still, even in the projects where we say are coming out for the development of the people, we're still using more money to do the same things that could have been done. Where does that extra money go? Where does it go? It's not accounted for. We don't understand. But then we hear later of sagas that come out. So we have these factors all continuing to impede development and actually show their face as wasted opportunities. Wasted opportunities in terms of what could have been done with that extra money. And that's the situation, whether we want to look at it or not.
Jerry, this is what in modern terms they refer to as a no-brainer. You just need to look at the very simple facts, and you will have no option but to agree with me that where the real wastage is. Yes, because in all honesty, we're not asking, we don't borrow sunlight. We don't need to. The rainfall that falls into Kenya, we don't ask our neighbors to give it to us for a season, then we return it. It's ours.
And there's actually envy. Look at some of the countries. Look at some of the countries like the Scandinavians, for example, who see the sun 4 months out of the year, and look at what they're able to do with solar energy.
With 4 months,
with
yes.
4 months.
As we have it
and
12.
here we are. We have it 12 months of the year. What are we doing with it? And it's right there for us to be able to tap. Right there. But then we focus our time on pilfering the money, of building dams that are actually non-existent, or using an extra double the amount that we could. They come here and they say, or even triple in some. They come from other countries.
We don't do double in this country.
Come here and say, we wish we had sun 12 months of the year like you do. And however, look at what they're able to do with the minimum
Do you know where
that
we
they
sell,
have.
We sell our sun to tourists. People, you know why people come to our beaches? Not because it's overcast.
They want to be able to sit in the sun, literally.
They enjoy
that. Yes. It's a resource that we have in plenty.
There was a project to actually put up a solar power plant in Malindi the other day. So the investor said that they got so much frustration from the government, they've moved it to Tanzania.
That it doesn't sound like news to me.
So that's what you're talking about, wasted opportunities.
Yes.
And people should be actually held accountable for this. People
Yes,
should be put to task.
Yes, they should. You know, these aren't civil crime. These are in the same category as murder, manslaughter, mass murders. Because something that clearly will help a great many people, someone subverts it. Now we have the story of the blue economy. Okay?
Yep.
The European Union and other partners have contributed a significant amount. Last time I checked, it was 20 billion. But whether it's just meant for us or the region, I'm not certain. But you will find that the very things that have been, this money is not just given because someone wakes up in the morning. People do due diligence, documentations, blah, 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 and say, okay. Now, the moment that money is announced, then you see, hear, observe movement. You'll find government ministers moving around it. You'll find civil servants within that particular ministry have been moved around. New people have been brought in. Why? They're coalescing around the money. And for sure, the very thing it was intended for will not be done. That's the certainty. And that's the sadness. And that is the missed opportunity. And that is the wastage that I'm speaking of.
And that's the soullessness that you're talking about.
This is the soullessness because it happens over and over and over and over again.
And I think it's quite unfortunate that we can actually predict what the situation will be. It's quite unfortunate that we've gotten to the point where we can actually see the end from the beginning.
What is it?
No.
Are we stupid?
Stupid isn't an adequate description.
Stupid is as stupid does.
Yeah, but that description is not insulting enough. You need
Oh,
to,
right.
You need
Okay.
a bigger one.
You need an adjective that makes someone wonder, am I really this? Stupid? No, not really.
We focus ourselves
What is
on
it?
two.
We lack the capacity. I'm trying to get to the bottom of this. Is it greed? Is it stupidity?
If you think of the ingenuity how people spend in stealing money, this requires brain power.
Yep.
Okay?
so who is stupid? The electorate
No.
in putting them there.
Disempowered, yes, but I'm looking for the word. When I arrive at an appropriate word, I will mention it.
0719-012-600. That's 0719-012-600. The conversations that are happening this morning, we are talking about the government wasting not just the resources, but the bigger crime, as C.T. Muga says, is wasting our potential. A lot could have been done that's not being done, and just because the government is not doing what it's supposed to be doing. That's the conversation we're having this morning. When we come out of this break, then we move also into that and hearing your feedback on it. And look at the crystal ball. What's going to happen come 2022? What are the alignments that we are likely to see? Well, this is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. It's 7:30.
How well do you know your country? Given a chance, where would you go? Not so many places, huh? Would you even know how to get there? Yes? No? Maybe? I don't know. Well, oh ye gallivanters and tourists alike, here is your chance to not only know, but also visit amazing destinations in Kenya with complete recommendations, guides, and tips on accommodation spots, wellness stops, and food joints all over Kenya. How you ask? Courtesy of the biggest locally targeted tours and travel magazine, Travelog. Travelog is your monthly pull-out magazine in the Standard newspaper every first Thursday of the month. With Travelog, enjoy the beauty of life that Kenya has to offer. Visit exotic and hidden destinations, be part of amazing conservation campaigns and projects as you simply enjoy Kenya. It's our way of putting Kenya on the map. Grab your copy and be aboard the fun wagon as you improve the quality of your local travel experiences. Travelog, Jione Kenya. Tired of living your same old life? Need to spice it up and add some flavor? Well, we can help you go from living to living it up. East Africa, are you ready to be a part of the most vibrant entertainment scene with the best, freshest music, travel tips and destinations, fashion, tech and health trends, as well as your favorite celebrities' lifestyles? Introducing your favorite entertainment magazine, Pulsar, the ultimate all-in-one guide that will give you more meaning to life. Catch up with your celebrity writers and contributors to stay up to date with what's happening around you, where and how you can be a part of all that. The lifestyle guide that has been missing in your life. Pulsar, live it up.
98.7 Spice FM, Mombasa. Traffic.
All right, Wayaki Way inbound at ABC is busy, slow but moving traffic. Mombasa Road from Gateway Mall heading to Cabanas is crazy traffic, and that is expected for a Monday morning. That is definite. Traffic on Langata Road starts at the Bomas of Kenya, trying to head in towards the T-Mall roundabout. Outer Ring Road traffic starts from Avenue Park. What is going on? Limuru Road is actually smooth heading all the way into the city centre. There is jam. It's backed up all the way to Feather, and that is coming from the eastern side of the city. Valley Road from Silver Springs Hotel down joining Kenyatta Avenue is horrible. Traffic in Meshikana, Shikishiki, Hatusongi. It's until today. I learned Ngong Road starts right there at the NSF buildings. Yes, it actually does. Someone has used a record 24 minutes from Nyayo Estate and Bakassi to the CBD, but that was a while ago. So right now, it is a situation where we have traffic on all major roads around the city of Nairobi. If you find an alternate route that you want to share, send that information. 0719 012 600.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
The Situation Room is Kenya's biggest conversation. In the room, Jerry Thorne, C.T. Muga, Ndu Oko, and I'm Eric Latif. It's 26 minutes to 8 o'clock. Well, the conversation is happening on Twitter, Facebook, Spice FM KE. On YouTube, we're live streaming on Spice FM KE. We're also live streaming on our website, www.spicefm.co.ke. The conversation we're having just before we went to the break is regarding the government and what it's doing and what it's not doing. And we're saying that C.T. Muga is basically saying, we've been fed so much with headlines of what has how the government is spending money, what the government is doing, spending X amount of money and not spending X amount of money. But then we are forgetting that the government is also wasting a lot in terms of opportunities where we should be. 0719 012 600 is a telephone line, and I'm opening up the phone lines this morning. Good morning, this is Spice FM. Hello. Well, he's on air. We'll get him. 0719 012 600. That's the telephone line. That's the number to call in. The conversation that you're raising, CT, and Jerry was asking you before we went to the break, or rather asking us before we went to the break, what does this mean, basically, about us as voters?
Not just voters, as Kenyans.
As Kenyans.
Are the leaders stupid? Is the electorate stupid?
Are we all stupid?
To say stupid is to simplify this issue beyond the simplicity that it actually has currently. What we have is a situation where people keep telling you, is the caller on, or should I continue speaking? Okay, we have a situation where there is this constant information that is thrown at us by politicians, by government officials, and what have you. And yet, if you look at the budget, that is a beautiful document. The details it goes into, the things it does. When you read it, you feel some work went into this.
Right.
Then we move away from that and you start asking questions, but what are the basic needs that we have? And you find, okay, you look at the budget lines for it. The money that is budgeted is good.
Right.
But then when you look at the net result, nothing. And you wonder, what on earth is going on here?
So you're telling us what happens. I'm asking you why.
I am telling you because I am beginning from the top and saying that the government is wasting a resource that isn't theirs to waste.
Right. And that's because they're greedy, or they're stupid, or for what reason?
All right.
Or they're not interested in developing the country because...
They're not interested in developing the country.
Why?
Everybody is there for their own personal interest.
True. Remember I said...
They're incompetent.
Selfish.
No,
Yes, it's selfish interest.
No. When you combine everything you've said, which is what they've done, they're soulless. There's no empathy.
But
they
who
don't
has
care.
voted?
They
Who has
don't worry.
voted these people in?
Another soulless
people.
group of people have voted in the
Amongst
soulless
these
leaders.
soulless people who have voted in, these soulless leaders, is there anybody with a soul?
Many.
So do you think that those many should be the ones voting
They're
them?
Many,
not represented.
Those many should be the ones voting.
Those
no?
many should be the ones who are seeking
You know
positions
something?
in government.
We don't
And
know.
voting.
Let
They
me open
vote.
up the phone
They
line.
do vote.
0719 012
They do
600.
vote.
Good morning, Mike. Mike. Hello, Mike. Yes, sorry. I've got you now. I've got you online now. How are you?
I'm good, Eric. How are you?
Salama kabisa. Welcome to the Situation Room. Everybody's here. Say hello.
Oh, hello, everyone.
Good morning.
Hello.
Mike.
Great. Now, interesting topic there, although I'll come with a disclaimer. And I know you guys will never say things as they are because could be somebody might decide to get you somewhere that you may not want to get in. I have enough friends who, before this regime took power, they were really struggling in the tender business. Right now, no sooner did the current regime get in
Than
the guys, I know of 3. These apartments you see being sold in town at 6 meter, 10 meter each. They would go and buy a whole block.
They're cash. They're liquid.
Tukwa. Very liquid. In my view, it all starts with the budgeting process. When they are budgeting, especially in the counties and everywhere else, I don't know whether it happens in the national, but in the counties, I think they normally consider the kickbacks and some extra thing there to take care of all this. I'm not against the projects. Most of these projects happen, and they happen to fruition. However, the cost of these projects is what actually makes me believe the budgeting process is made in such a way to include bribes, to include all the thuggery that normally happens in most of these projects. One of these guys of mine was supplying towels to an NHIF project in one of the counties. And no sooner did it supply these towels from Gikomba, he just went and took blue towels, just blue,
Yep.
and supplied. And he was able to buy himself 5 apartments in one of the high-rise from one of the high-rise estate developers.
Oh, good for him.
Dr. Mike,
I know,
are you suggesting we should buy towels?
I think
When all else fails.
we're in the wrong job.
I think being your friend is a good starting point.
Do you not
We
think
are-
it's
we
a
are
good
in the
thing
wrong
that we're
job.
building, that the government is helping build a middle class? I mean, tenders are open to everybody. And of course, now with the emphasis on women and youth and a certain quota being given to women and the youth, does your friend fall into any of these brackets? Does he fall into the youth?
And that's what I'm saying. I'm not against the project. The projects are so viable, apart from the Aurora Kimwarev thing that came
Of
the other
course,
day.
those Rift Valley
The
ones.
projects are so good. I mean, they're empowering people, they're empowering the youth, the women, people with disabilities. But what I've observed, it makes me feel like I'm in the wrong job because most of these people who win these tenders, from what I've gathered, there's a percentage of the value of the LPO to one of those accounting clerks.
So
or the
it's
procurement guy.
kickback based.
So at the end of the day, the projects are so inflated that you'll find whatever we are discussing in that studio might just be just a scratch on the surface. You go to the counties and you ask yourselves why are the counties not able even to pay taxes? You know, as basic as paying taxes, NHIF and SSS for its employees. It's because of that hyperinflation of most of those, those tenders and contracts they give to these people, all in the name of benefiting people within the system.
So it's not for development, it's for benefiting individuals within the system. Even
In
when
fact,
we look at
most of
these projects that are initiated.
Yes. In fact, most of those projects, they initiated not because at the end of the day, they're meant to benefit one or two, one Jiko. But there is always that aspect of somebody benefiting from them. And as one of you said, it just requires a donor to just announce that he's giving 20 billion for Project X. Then you see movements around that bus. And no sooner do you hear that, and then you hear again the DCI has a story to give. Then Nurdin Hagin comes in. It's not because the projects were misplaced. But the culture within Kenya, I think it starts from the top, from the budgeting process. We are all to blame in this, apart from the electorate.
Why?
We are all to blame. The whole system is so rotten.
Why apart from the electorate?
Because by the time I voted Sonko in, I never thought he would go and do what he wanted,
So you didn't know.
what he did. I had no clue
Right.
of what kind of a man Sonko is until he got in.
And do you think that's the position with a lot of the electorate? They have no clue?
And that's the point. We are not clueless. It's not that they're clueless. What they are, they're just innocent enough to vote in somebody who appeals and who
Or who
has
they
a-
think that will go and actually
They're gullible.
legislate for
who will go and
them.
deliver. Who will go and deliver. Gullibility is not the word here.
They
By the
trust.
time you're voting somebody in, you trust that he will deliver true.
You've believed what he has said, yeah. You're
And
gullible.
that's the point. Until, really? Until he gets in there, then he starts pinching. Then, you are left to wonder what else. But that said, the issue of this contract, the issue of inflated budgets and corruption, especially among within the tendering process, actually you cannot blame that on the electorate. You can only blame it on the people in those offices.
Who put them in those offices?
Fine, putting them in is one thing. And them going in there and doing stupid nonsense stuff there,
But if you had
Yes,
done your
and
due
Yes, yeah,
diligence as a voter, maybe you wouldn't have put
Let
him
me
in.
ask.
No.
Let me ask.
Not necessarily.
No, not necessarily. That is something you cannot actually do.
No, you can. You
may
can
not
look at
have the
somebody's integrity. We've discussed this. We've created a formula on how to vet your leaders,
And you
where
still-
you look
and
at
you'll still not
integrity,
get it
proximity.
right.
There's a number of things.
And you'll still not get
No,
it
because
right.
now we're voting. He said it himself.
Okay.
Populism.
Okay, listen to. Let me give an example here. Let's not even go to an elected person. Let's go to an appointed CS, who it is being said and alleged that there is a Ruaraka land place somewhere where they paid someone some billion. I mean, this is an officer whose due diligence was done above board.
On various
So
stages.
leave alone these MCAs that we vote in, and they go and start doing bungalows. I mean, as a voter, you don't have the capacity to go ahead and start saying, "Hey, look, I need to know this person better than what I know him on the posters they hang around the streets, or on what he tells us."
So-
What the voter wants to hear is, does this person speak to my problems?
Which
Does
he
this
will.
person
So the
speak
voter should also be intelligent enough to figure that if he's trying to win your vote, he will pretend to speak to your problems. He will appeal to your heart and mind for whatever reason. The voter doesn't
And
know
for that-
this.
And that is basically what they need to do. They need to appeal to me as a voter. As to whether this guy is a criminal or not, that to me may not be part of my agenda as a voter, because one, I'm not equipped enough to be told to know whether I don't have the records, his criminal records.
But actually,
It's only the other day that I knew Sonko was a captain in one of the prisons.
Okay.
He has
Now,
been a jailbird.
would you? What if those people who
Like
are
what I mean.
equipped enough, they're informed enough, and more discerning than you are? Would you be willing to let them help you vote or direct your vote? So maybe their vote can weigh a little bit more than yours, perhaps.
Could be the IEBC should come up with a program with a system that can help us, do due diligence from our living rooms, and we get to know. By the time I'm voting this person, he has this criminal record. He has this record of doing A, B, C, D, whether good or bad. So that by the time you're doing this thing of voting, we know who exactly we are putting in.
So when you voted for Sonko, you didn't know he had been to jail?
Absolutely.
You didn't.
I knew it at the time that he went to a certain live TV show in Citizen with Jeff, and he brought out all his rotten past.
And you
I
didn't know
sat
any
there
of this.
And I didn't know. I just knew Sonko is just a flamboyant young man who just likes showing off, but at the same time he speaks volumes of what I go through on a
Speaks to the
day-to-day
people.
in this city.
Yeah.
So coming back
That's
to the
the
point,
thing.
Mike, just as we conclude, as we let you go, I can hear ambulances calling to your attention
Yeah.
there. So City is saying that, we are focusing a lot on what the government is wasting in terms of what has been budgeted and how they are misappropriating the budgeted funds. But there's the other point that we are not looking at, which is the wasted opportunities that we are not taking. What do you think of that?
Even if you look at wasted opportunities, the amounts that we are losing currently, I mean, who loses 800 billion a year and survives?
Just
In
like
fact,
that.
it's by God's grace that we are surviving.
So Kenya is a rich
that we're
country
able
as
to
well.
fuel our cars. We are very rich. I agree with what City has said. We have great opportunities, not even with the sun that he's talking about and the rainfall and the acres of space that we have. No. It is by the sheer amount that we are losing to corruption. We cannot explain to anyone in this world, either in this world or in heaven, that we are still surviving after losing the amount that we lose per year to corruption. In fact, I've traveled in some countries, and always keep asking myself, when these top guys go there and they come back to the ISO that meets them, don't they even have that guts
To say, can
that
we have
visceral
something?
thought?
To
Can
wish
we
that
have
we get it for
something done?
ourselves.
At least we don't chew something for 1 year,
Right.
and we just make this place a bit better, like the places we go to. This is the only country that I know in medicine we practice witchcraft. I know of cases which just got well, and I cannot explain how they got well. I know of cases that died, and they don't know how they died.
Yeah.
It's not because of anything. It's because when you require something to do your job, It is not available. Why? The reason is there is no fund.
And why there's
But
no fund,
again-
it's been pilfered.
You know, Mike, we said that one of the
That
things
is the point.
You see, what bedevils many of our people is that they are soulless. You're describing something. How does someone do the things they do? Don't they see? Don't they understand the harm?
Things.
They lost their soul a long time ago.
Thank you very
And
much,
I
Mike.
laughed myself out. Let me finish my last point. I laughed myself out when one of the politicians had just a soft tissue injury on his face and had to take a flight to Germany for a stitch. That speaks volumes. And that is why they'll never come out clear and say, hey, look, I'm suffering here. I have this type of cancer. Please. They'll never say it. Utasikia alienda. And then somebody is not being seen in his or her county, then again comes back in a vegetable state. It's not because of anything. It is chewing them to the bone as to what they are doing to this country. Sorry for speaking emotionally with emotion.
No. It's absolutely
It's
necessary.
an emotive subject.
We thank you.
Mike, tell me you're a doctor. Is that correct?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Can you listen in tomorrow? We'll be talking about clinical negligence in Kenya. Would love your insights.
Oof. I don't have a personal indemnity cover.
No. This is this is a talk show, man.
Okay, great.
Asante sana. Have
Thank
a
you
good
so
one.
much.
Thank
Okay,
you.
sorry.
Well, so this is an unending topic, like you said. I mean, it's opening up the conversation, and then the conversation continues, and it will tie into very many other things that we'll keep talking about. When you talk about governance and leadership, we'll always keep looking at this: is the government wasting our resources, or is the government wasting our opportunities? And which one are we actually wasting all?
He had a really good point, though, an interesting point in terms of tenders and the sort of how much they've got to pump them up by in order to meet everybody's needs.
Yep.
And this can actually be argued as not a bad thing because you're enriching more people along the line in terms of, resource or money redistribution of money.
No,
It is arguable that way, and that money, of course, trickles down with the
it's
communities
not
we have.
It's not
It is
arguable.
a perspective that
No,
exists. It doesn't mean it's my perspective,
It's
Eric.
wrong
It is a
one.
perspective
It's
that
a wrong
exists.
perspective, though.
You know, Jerry, the point, Eric, is let me be fair. The point you make from a commercial perspective
been made.
is good. I'm saying it is good. I'm giving it a value. But you cannot outvalue the harm that this sort of thing does. It diminishes whatever good that could be produced from this completely. Because when you talk about someone who is essentially interfering with your prospects, that's someone who's interfering with the future. So, as a crime, where do you place this? Because you are harming people who haven't even been born. You have destined an entire generation who don't even know they will ever exist into a situation that they haven't asked for because of these steps that you're taking. That's really what I'm talking about. That's what these people are doing. That's what it does. That's the net result.
And that's soullessness.
That is soullessness.
8 minutes to 8 o'clock. This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. Well, we're talking about what the government is doing, what the government should have done, what the government has not done. Let's look at the next government as well at the same time. So let's start looking at it 2022. Succession politics. Jerry, your crystal ball, have you shaken it, or do you want us to give you a moment to shake it?
No,
now.
Let's first look at the structures that we might envisage in the next government, because the talk of the referendum is intensifying. We've now got three groups. We've got BBI, we've got Punguza Mzigo, and
Ugatuzi.
Ugatuzi.
What does it mean again? Ugatuzi.
Devolution.
Devolution. Oh, okay. Interesting. So we've got those three pushing for I was going to say revolution. Freudian slip there. But some of the changes are revolutionary in terms of what's going to happen to the constitution and the structures we'll have. And I definitely foresee, I don't know whether it's going to be the Ugatuzi or the BBI one, but definitely one coming up with a parliamentary system. So that is definite on my crystal ball, that there will be a parliamentary system question on the referendum, and I think, of course, it will win. So by 2022, we will be voting we will have a prime minister and a president, a deputy prime minister and a deputy president. So the politics or the climate or the terrain is going to change in terms of how we do our politics. Having said that, the people who fill in those positions, I think, my crystal ball keeps giving me different messages depending on what's happening. And this weekend, Sonko was just screaming at me throughout, and I couldn't.
What did the scream entail, Jerry?
Oh, wow.
No, I've just been looking. I mean, he has been targeted. He's been the center of a witch hunt, and there's got to be good reason to that. I'm not saying that he isn't culpable for some of the things that he's been accused of, but there has been an intensified effort to get to Sonko, whether it's through KRA, whether it's through tendering processes. I mean, they're getting him for things Kidero did. So today I'm on his side, and I'm really propping him up because I see him as our next deputy president.
That's a big one. Deputy President Mike Mbuvi Sonko. That is what Njeri is seeing on her crystal ball this morning. What do you think? 0719 012 600. That's 0719 012 600. However, how do we get a deputy president from your crystal ball in the next system of government?
Eric, before you even go there, I have to thank Jerry. She actually listens to me.
She's crossed over.
She actually listens. Carry
That's
on.
just today. I might revise my position, but I'm feeling
give it a
Sonko
few
at
minutes.
the moment. I really am.
Just
Give it a few minutes.
I really am. And we'll look at the facts and figures and sentiments behind all that. If you look at Sonko, first of all, I do have a soft spot for Sonko. I've always said he's the pioneer of tribeless leaders, of tribeless politics. Sonko doesn't come across as any particular tribe. Actually, he fits into the haves and have-nots in that he supports or speaks to and for the have-nots in as far as he paints himself and how he's packaged himself for public consumption. So he's very appealing for me in that he moves away from the tribal politics that we know. So it's a new generation, a new type of politics coming into play. So definitely, even for me, he appeals somewhat. Having said that, we do still vote on tribal blocks. We're not going to change that overnight. And he is Kamba, which is, I think, the 5th largest tribe in the country. It makes up for about 11%. Of course, we have to wait and see what the census says. But if we go with us having grown to maybe about 48 million, I would have thought, that's my guess. If it's 11%, that's almost 5 million votes that would back Sonko if he went for the presidency, or if you were looking to buy a voting block and you got all the Kambas behind him, right?
Does he embody the qualities that you say would need to the deputy president of the republic to have? The deputy president will actually be in charge of state. So
he
this
embodies the qualities
presidency
that
will be
would
head
bring
of
the
state.
electorate on board. You see, those are two very different things, and this is why I've talked about weighted voting. He embodies the qualities that would excite the electorate, that would bring the electorate on board, whoever he's seconding. I think it will be Ruto Sonko, if you ask me. I think Ruto will pick Sonko as his running mate, given the narrative that he's been pushing.
That Ruto will be president.
That's not what she's
That
saying.
will be
That would be one of the pairs that you see
that would be
dominate.
one of the pairs that is
if
put
Ruto
forward.
is picking Sonko as deputy president and Jerry's crystal ball is showing
No.
Sonko
Those are
as deputy
semantics.
president,
No.
then
You're
therefore it
looking-
follows.
No, those are semantics. What I'm saying is that they'll be running as a duo. It will be Ruto Sonko.
So are you looking at a situation?
Ronco.
Okay. Are we looking at a
Runco.
situation whereby
Runco.
he has the qualities that can have him selected as or basically to put forth an entire block? Does he then have the qualities that would have him see the country through in terms of development agenda, in terms of legislation, in terms of government and policy,
In other words,
etc.,
is
etc.?
he a
Because we're looking
suitable
at two
fit?
Okay,
different
when I
things
say a
here.
voting
A
block
deputy
and the
head of
Kamba
state.
block, when I say a voting block and the Kamba block, that is not something I'm 100% sure of, because, as I say, he doesn't have that tribal allegiance as yet. He hasn't built it, but I can easily see him pulling that in. He then pulls in the youthful bloc. He then pulls in the unemployed and those who feel that this government, or the elite and the dynasties, the anti-dynasties sentiments, he pulls all those in. And he represents a vast majority of Kenyans, to be honest, from a tribal perspective, from an age demographic, right through to sort of a fortunes or wealth or income demographic. He does represent a huge chunk of Kenyans, and he speaks their language as well. You know, he plays to the audience. So in terms of pulling voters in, yes. Now, in terms of his capacity as deputy president and as statesman, I think we as Kenya have come far enough to have strong enough institutions to support any kind of leader.
Is that your way of
I
saying that in
think
terms of
supporting
his
is one
capacity?
thing.
No.
then he doesn't
When I say
represent.
support, to uphold or to withstand should be the word.
To withstand.
To withstand any sort of leader in terms of our democratic institutions, the separation of powers, the checks and balances that are in place, the fact that we have the EACC, for instance. I'm just giving you the different institutions, whether sort of existing institutions, constitutional institutions, or non-conventional institutions, even society. We have a way of putting our leaders to task one way or another. So I think Kenya has built itself up to a point where it doesn't matter who is at the helm per se. So sort of like Trump.
So
You've
we're
got
saying
this
that
crazy guy at the top of what we call
the
the free
institutions,
world,
as it were,
but he
supporting
can't
his
turn
lack.
around and say, let's kill all the Mexicans.
It's Succession Monday. Jerry Thorne says Mike Mbuvi Sonko will be the deputy president come 2022. What do you think? 0719 012 600. It's 8 o'clock.
All right, looking at situation on the roads around about 8 o'clock, it's crazy coming in through from James Gishuru and trying to join Wayakiwe. It will take you 45 minutes to town at best. All right, the Allsops interchange outbound seems to have a bit of an issue. One side of the road was open, the other side is still clogged, and we're not getting any traffic out. Another complaint of Wayakiwe inbound. It has become a nightmare. Traffic has increased dramatically after the opening of the Red Hill bypass, after a bright person also decided to open Westland's Ring Road traffic at the roundabout. So we have a bit of a mess there trying to get into the city centre. Very bad traffic on Outer Ring Road, Feather Avenue, Kware. Avoid it if you can. All right, a canter overturned police on Mombasa Road, and like I said, if Mombasa Road could speak, we would have tears in number. So we have an issue on Mombasa Road trying to get into the CBD from the Nyayo Stadium roundabout, and that's going to cause us some traffic getting into the CBD. We have issues around Koinange Street, Kenyatta Avenue. It's a nightmare Monday, unfortunately, as traffic is concerned. As that opens up, we'll try to send out as much information as we can, but for now we have to make do with what we have. 0719 012 600 is the number. Share the info and we'll pass it on.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have Jerry Thorne, lawyer, political strategist, an insider in the corridors of power, ready to take on any side of the debate with her signature eloquence and grit. C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your
2.5 minutes
day.
past 8 o'clock. Good morning. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. We are on Monday. Today is Monday, so it's Succession Mondays, and Jerry Thorne looking at her crystal ball today. And she says she sees Mike Mbuvi Sonko, the current governor of Nairobi, as the next deputy president. One of the two.
Hold on,
And she's
semantics
actually.
are important here because that's suggesting that he will win, or that's suggesting that Ruto will win. What I'm saying is he'll be Ruto's running mate. So he'll be bidding or vying.
Okay, so you are seeing Mike Mbuvi Sonko as Ruto's running mate for the
Absolutely.
presidency in 2022.
Absolutely.
And Mike Mbuvi Sonko going for deputy presidency.
Absolutely.
Let's see what people think. 0719 012 600. Good morning. I've got Mustafa from Kitale. Good morning, Mustafa.
Good morning. How are you, viewers?
We're good.
Very
we're
well,
good.
thank you, Mustafa.
Fine, Mustafa.
Okay, I'm calling from Kitale.
Yes.
First, I will not support the constitutional change because I do believe that the current constitution is okay and it's perfect. And what we should do is to implement it to its letter.
Yep.
So I do not see the need to change the constitution.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the deputy president, I will wish that Ruto should at least focus on the larger parts like Western, because in Western we have people who are formidable, and who can help him bring the presidency.
Like who do you have in mind, sir?
Ken Lusaka.
Oh, okay.
Ken Lusaka, to our side, it will be better, and at least as lawyers will come on board and support him fully.
Would you come all together and support him, or would you be split by the likes of Boni Halwale, Mukisa Kitui, if they come into the race, for instance, Wamalwa, Wetangula, and so on? Would you be able to unite under Lusaka? Because that is the problem with the Western vote. That is why nobody courts them.
Yeah, I want to assure you, if it's Lusaka, we all people from Western will back Ruto and support Lusaka for the deputy presidency.
So
who is assuring you? This is your personal reassurance, or
It's his crystal ball.
oh, this is your crystal ball? This is your sense of it.
So you're looking at a situation where the only time you would then back Ruto is if Lusaka came in and as his running mate. Other than that, you would not see a Ruto backing from the Western Bloc.
Yeah, it will have some weak hiccups. We cannot underrate that. But if it chooses from Lusaka, at least the Western people will see an opportunity whereby they can build themselves for maybe future.
So again, it's not about Ruto support, but it's about Western representation, then government, yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Because of the numbers. You have to also consider the numbers.
Why Lusaka in particular?
Lusaka, because, it's much straightforward, and it's a person, you can associate with him because you can work with him.
What about Oparanya, who has a great track record of developing his county?
No, it's difficult to work with Oparanya because you have also to consider age. Because most young people will not be comfortable with the octogenarians. That's my perspective.
What about Mudavadi? Would you coalesce around Mudavadi?
No, also the factor that, Mudavadi has been in power since we were young. We have had him, but there is no tangible thing he has done. You remember the scenario in 2013 when he ran against Raila Odinga. In his own polling station, the Mdamba primary, he only scooped 27 votes, and Raila got 1,977. This speaks volume. It tells you that this is a person that he's not with the people. He's on his own league. So people will
things
not
do change.
tend to. People will not be comfortable with such a person at the helm of such
But can you see, just from this conversation, we have mentioned Wetangula, Mudavadi, Mukisa Kitui, Boni Halwale, Atwoli, perhaps. Can you see where the problem is, where the problem lies, perhaps, in the Western Bloc?
Yeah, the rest, excluding Lusaka, the rest are like political brokers. They've been there. They're in for their own interests. But unlike Lusaka, who is a new generational figure, people tend to be on his side.
But you have Sakaja as well, if you're talking about the younger demographic.
But I have reservations because it's not a Luya he's about.
Ah, right. Okay.
But then my brother, the person you mentioned is a Bukusu. So if we start now segmenting people according to the community affiliation, then I would argue that you sound like you're supporting one of your own.
Does Sabawat fall under the Luya umbrella? Or is
People
it
argue
Kalenjin?
about it. People argue about it.
It's Kalenjin.
No, they're Kalenjins. Yeah, Kalenjin.
They're Kalenjin.
Kalenjin versus Luya versus.
Right.
Yeah, for example, I'm a Maragoli. Then when you go to Maragoli land, people are comfortable with Lusaka.
Okay.
I can tell you for that. Okay, thank you very much.
Mustafa, thank you very much for calling.
Mustafa is there. He wants Ruto to look west and go for the Western vote. He has been wooing them. A lot of nominations from his side came from people from Western, and he's doing a few projects there. But I don't think they're a reliable bloc, to be honest. They really aren't, because anything, I've just named 20 leaders pretty much that they're affiliated with, depending on their sub-tribe and so on. And they have never come together. The one time they did come together was under Kijana Wamalwa, as I've mentioned before. But that was more to do with the circumstance and the time. It was a happenstance, so to speak, a little bit of serendipity.
So you're saying that you're seeing Mike Sonko being Ruto's running mate.
Absolutely.
And therefore Mike Sonko being Ruto's running mate for the deputy presidency. And and in this is an instance where we have two deputy presidents in 2022. So he becomes one of the two.
No, we have a deputy prime minister. We have a prime minister and a deputy prime minister.
And
but
a
I don't
president
want
and
to
a deputy
discuss
president.
politics today under those structures. I have predicted that those will be the structures, that there'll be a parliamentary system. We'll have a prime minister and a deputy prime minister, a president and a deputy president. But not both are voted in by members of the general public. So I want to discuss it under the structures of the constitution as it is
As
now.
it is today.
Because that's what my crystal ball's been telling me. I need to update it for it to know there's going to be a referendum.
Reload the page, essentially.
Yeah.
It's interesting that we note that even if we do have one candidate who would then come in, because you had mentioned, Jerry, if you have, him coming, if you have Sonko coming in as vice president, for example, coming in as deputy president and looking at a situation whereby he then would be able to pull, a certain vote or pull in, be populist on certain levels, then we say that, okay, if he's not then able to handle what it would mean to actually be a deputy president, that we do have structures in place in government that would be able to support his role with the different agencies that we have in place, with the different technocrats, etc., etc. We're looking at a situation whereby those would then be able to support the role per se of deputy president, and we don't actually need to depend on the individual, because we have those agencies or those departments or those individuals in place that would support the role. Then again are we now saying that we have considerate or sufficient capacity at that level? And so then essentially, if we have those offices in place, the question comes in, do we need a deputy?
I think for the sake of democracy and people feeling that they've participated or been part of a democratic process, it's important that we do vote. Voting is a key ingredient of democracy. So yes, we do need that. And there are some decisions that are made. What I'm saying is that you don't have to be the best decision maker. You don't have to have great talent, skill, capacity to lead, because I think the institutions are sufficiently strong. We've built up the muscle through our democracy and the different institutions to accommodate any sort of character. Just like I was giving the example of the US, where you have Trump, who's crazy as hell, but he can't go out and issue decrees or say let's kill all the Mexicans, because there's a civil rights bill, for instance, which is respected and upheld by the judiciary. So what I'm saying is we've reached that point as a democracy where I would say we're semi-mature. I wouldn't say we're fully mature as a democracy, but our institutions have been strengthened by this very administration.
0719 012 600. We'd love to know what you think. Good morning, Kimutai.
Yes, good morning.
How are you, sir? You're calling from Eldoret.
Yes, I'm coming from Eldoret.
Have you heard what Jerry's crystal ball is saying this morning?
Yes, very well.
What do you think?
In fact, Jerry is very nice.
Mm-hmm.
She considers very well.
So you agree
My
that...
point of view, yes, very well. I agree that Sonko should be Ruto's running mate.
Mm.
And if in case this PBI issue goes through, Sonko will be Ruto's running mate, then Obaranya, the Western, and then we have to look somewhere at Coast, and then automatically Prime Minister should come from Central.
Uh-huh.
Yes. In politics, yes, you must keep somebody with votes, a number of votes. Automatically, Central comes from the first. They have 6 million votes.
Oh.
And then probably more. We'll know after the census.
Sorry.
We'll know after the census.
Yes. But you have to use the current arithmetic that
right.
Central they already have 6 million votes.
Mm-hmm.
Then we also have to do the Ukambani votes of 2 million. That's through Sonko.
Mm-hmm.
Then we go Western.
Mm-hmm.
Western we get from Obaranya.
Mm-hmm.
I'm seeing Lusaka is a non-starter.
Mm-hmm.
Lusaka can support of Lusaka comes from Bungoma.
Mm-hmm. And
that's and merely a number of youth.
Mm-hmm.
There are few.
And
my
what sort of percentage of Central do you think Ruto has a chance of getting? Because I know in the last week, Tanga has been waning in terms of from Central support. A lot of people have been going to apologize for having been in the Tanga brigade, although that's more inside information.
very well.
Mm.
Very well. You know, Jerry, Ruto is a very smart schemer. He automatically have to hold votes. The percentage, in terms of percentage, I think he can get 70%.
70% of the Kikuyu vote.
Yes.
Okay. Would he not have to have a Kikuyu in his mix to do that? You don't think the Kikuyus themselves want somebody in that mix?
Yes. That's okay. Yes, but you know, the current politics now are changing. They are changing. They are seeing that these people of ours, that's the Kikuyus, they are not well. They have been subject or they have been following some other people. Just the case of the Kalenjin. The Kalenjin now, if you talk of the family, Moi family, they won't consider any move. Just normal. Those are people who are yet to protect their property only.
Okay, so this
because
is the
they have invested, so they want to protect their property only. But the crown are changing. Dynasties are the Hazela.
That's one narrative. Have you heard the phrase history repeats itself?
Yes.
Now, has the Kikuyu community ever voted for anybody but a Kikuyu?
Recently, I read a certain newspaper. They were fronting somebody Muho. So that is still a dynasty. Yes,
you are aware that there's people pushing for that narrative, people pushing to say that these are dynasties.
Yes,
because even the Ruto camp, they're forming their own dynasty. His children are out in different positions and so on. So it's something very similar as well.
They will keep on changing. They will keep on changing. That's after Ruto, they go to Songo, Sakaja, Singh, Apapua. That is the dynasty are going to fail.
Okay, so you just want the dynasties changed. You accept that they're all dynasties if you're at the helm of power, but
yes,
it's just changing them.
Period of time. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much for calling this morning.
Thank you so much.
0719 012 600. We're looking at Jerry's crystal ball this morning, and she's saying that it's showing her William Ruto picking Mike Mbuvi Sonko as running mate for deputy president. Therefore, Mike Mbuvi Sonko, and he brings something to the table, and this is a different demographic that you say, Jerry.
Eric, is this picking an individual to run with you, or is it agreeing with someone so that he can accompany you on the journey? Which one is it?
It's seeing who brings you the votes.
Who will be paying who in this case?
I see.
Yeah.
So that's the question. Would Sonko is up for sale, put it that way. Sonko's got a big price on his head in terms of he's a serious commodity when it comes to 2022 elections.
He has what you call serious social capital.
Absolutely.
Yes, he does.
Voting capital, social capital, electoral capital.
He does it.
Absolutely.
In that age group, there's no one in this country can compare to him.
Right, it's true, and we're looking at what we can deliver in terms of, getting people on board to bring in another individual. But then we're not also, at the same time, we're not looking at what then he would bring on board as par, what he could serve as the government.
Qualities.
Nobody cares about that. We're Kenyan, remember?
Right, and
nobody cares. Nobody cares what somebody can do. And we don't vote on those lines.
Yes, and then I come back to the issue that we then come back roundabout later and say that these are the issues that we face, and continue to complain about why these things have then not been implemented in government for us to move forward when it comes to development, etc., etc. And then we beg the question, we come back and say, then who then should be given the opportunity to vote? But we're looking at the same position whereby we say that this person is able to pull the crowds, this person is able to pull the numbers, this person is able to influence a certain bloc, to be able to get them in for a personality or an individual to be put into government. But then we come and look at the other side of the coin, whereby this person then does get into government, and the same electorate complain, haven't been given the opportunity to vote. So we seem to be chasing our tail.
No.
Going back and forth.
Jerry, take the view.
Ndu, say hello to Ken. Ken is calling in from Gong this morning. Good morning, Ken.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning, Ken.
How are you today, everyone?
Good.
We are well, thank you.
Okay, so what is your crystal ball telling you about this thing? Because I kind of woke up late, so I didn't.
No. You can't do that.
Okay. So I'm going to change. I'm going to change all your views.
Here we go.
So how about I second Matiang'i for president and me for vice president.
Okay. And you are who?
Yeah, I'm called Ken. I'm calling you from Gong. I'm a businessman from Gong.
Excellent.
And I think all the callers you've had so far are all just tribal. They don't know what they want, and they're not very good Kenyans. They're not patriots. They're all just looking at who is going to benefit them from their tribe. Why don't we just look at Kenya?
Do you think maybe they're realistic, perhaps?
They're not realistic. They're dreamers, proper dreamers.
Right.
And how would you then say, if they argue that you are the dreamer, what would you say?
Wanting to be deputy president
what
with
would you say as a
Matiang'i?
disclaimer?
Oh, okay. Okay, I was kidding there, but
That's the disclaimer.
I think you should try and be the change you want to see in this world.
I agree with
So
you.
let's try and reduce all the tribalism. Let's try and pick someone who has brains and brawn instead of looking at dynasties and all that and who's going to benefit whose community, and it doesn't make any sense.
How can you convince people of this, Ken?
I don't know, but I don't know how we're going to do it. But slowly by slowly, we'll get people to look at Kenya as a country, not Kenya as Western Bloc and Eastern Bloc and whatever bloc they. But
Ken, we do have a Western Bloc and an Eastern Bloc and
It's
a Central
there.
Bloc.
It's not
But
an opinion. It's
at the
a
same
fact.
time, one of the things that we're saying about Sonko is because he does not actually mirror any of these blocks.
He could be the pioneer.
He's mirroring something different. Sonko could be a pioneer. Ken could also be another pioneer. Right,
if
Ken?
he steps up to the plate. Yes, that's true. If he steps up to the plate.
If who steps up to the plate? Sonko?
If Sonko steps up to the plate and he has good backing and following, then he could be the change we want to see.
What would this stepping up to the plate entail, in your opinion?
He would be trying to unify Kenyans as a nation and people not look at him as a Kamba who wants to benefit Kambas. And because he's in our capital city, which is a very volatile place and very diverse. So Nairobi, there's no Luyas or Luos or anything.
So what if he's a unifying factor, but he appeals to the Kamba vote? Can you not have both? What I'm saying is tribalism doesn't have to be necessarily a negative thing. We can vote on tribal lines for different reasons without it being such a negative thing. Because we do have that affinity to our person, and it boils down to, which we've discussed before. I don't know if you listen to all our discussions, the fact that maybe we lack a Kenyan identity and we might feel closer to our tribe first and foremost. And the fact that we're just basic and we tend to think that if our guy is in, we'll benefit somehow.
It's not fair if we vote along tribal lines, because first of all, I'm a Teso from Kitale, that side.
Yeah.
But I live in Gong. So what kind of representation am I going to get if I think I want to lead?
So you are thinking along tribal lines. It does underpin your thinking. It's just that it's not of any benefit to you. Because you've said it. What representation would you get if it was tribal?
I think the point he was making is, if it wasn't tribal, then his being a Teso from Kitale wouldn't matter. That's the point I think he's trying to make.
That's what he's saying.
Okay, I'm also allowed to see the other side.
Yes.
Right, and then if we're looking at a situation where we come back later and say that we have people being put in as an electorate, which is selecting people that because we do not know, because essentially we do not know, and so certain people should then decide, what's the point of that? If we're looking at the entire country moving forward, being positive, just because we vote on tribal lines doesn't mean it needs to remain so. It doesn't mean that we need to continue pushing that particular agenda.
Yes.
We should actually start looking at the country then and saying that in terms of its development, of being able to then to move forward, to put away all these things that dog us and to hold and that continually hold us back. Then just because we do things a certain way doesn't mean we need to continue.
We should accept change. Ken, thank you very much for joining us this morning. Thank you for your call.
You're welcome.
We wish you a very good day.
Okay.
So as we continue this, we have some breaking news. Something has happened in school in Dagoretti.
Unfortunately, Precious Talent School this morning, tragic wall collapse, and the classroom wall collapsed in Ngando. Dozens of children have been trapped inside. So far, unfortunately, 2 pupils have been confirmed dead. The Red Cross is en route to the scene, and this is in Dagoretti area of Nairobi. And again, unfortunately, now 4 pupils have been confirmed dead.
Yes.
And because of the wall that has collapsed just this morning.
Red Cross officials are heading there. They are going to assist with the rescue operations. Well, of course, we'll keep you updated as this news unfolds. In Crystal Ball this morning, Jerry is seeing Mike Mbuvi Sonko as a deputy presidential candidate. And the conversation that we're having this morning is, do you agree? Do you see that as a viable option for this country? Do you see it as a possibility? Or who else do you see as, a deputy presidential candidate? And in this particular case, Jerry is seeing Mbuvi Sonko going with William Ruto. So William as president, Sonko as deputy. Who do you see in your crystal ball? 0719-012-600. That's the conversation we're having this morning. Sonko, you were very happy when Jerry said Sonko. And so
I was very happy that Njeri seems to have seen the light.
And the light here being
Sonko. The red light.
Yeah.
Warning light. Alarm bells.
The light which she put forth very, very clearly was this. And she said it on many occasions, not just today, that in Sonko you have a new sort of leader. Given where it is that he is governor, and given where it is his ancestral background is, and given the votes he got, remember, after the Jubilee Alliance and after the NASA Alliance, the individual who then got the most, just votes, not any alliance, was Sonko.
It's 800,000 votes.
Yes, and as governor. Now, those aren't a few votes. Okay? So, if you look at just the vote, it tells you there's something about this man that the voter likes.
Absolutely.
And then you ask yourself, who is it that comprises the body of voters in this country, the largest body of voters? And they fall in the category of the youth. And this resonates throughout the country. Remember, a story is told that on the campaign trail, before this particular election, when the deputy president and the president were in Baringo, campaigning, something very odd happened. Very odd. The electorate said, please, before you speak, get a Sonko.
This is in Baringo, so he has national appeal as well.
Yes.
I have said this before.
Something happened.
And if you remember, you people, my erstwhile colleagues, I'm referring to you here as you people. You people almost ate me alive. And I said, the age group that he represents, it's not a tribe, it's not a community, it's a demographic group that he represents.
And maybe presidency is changing. Sorry to interrupt, because one of the barriers. Socialite. Yeah, well, no, one of the barriers I have.
Jerry, don't change too much, please. Just apologizing before you interrupt me. No. You're actually going to destabilize.
Do it in bite-sized chunks.
Just interrupt as you
now that the phone lines are open, I think let's allow the callers to also interrupt at the same time. So Dennis calling in from Roca. Good morning, Dennis.
Okay, good morning, sir.
Very well, thank you. How are you?
Okay, I'm good. I'm talking about there is coming a revolution in this country. Definitely because the 190 have suffered a lot. And me being one of the youth in Kenya, with the rising unemployment and all this government has messed up everything.
Yep.
So definitely we need a change. We don't want to see the same names up there in politics. We don't want to see the same names. We want new people and new type of leadership that we want. So definitely, for those people you have mentioned, the kind of Kinaruta, they've been in their seats for a long time.
A very long time.
They've been there for a very long time, and we haven't seen change. Nothing has changed. In fact, even there is a rise of corruption and whatever is going on in the government. So as Wananchi, we are very fed up, and we just want to see change. So the change is what we are going to vote for.
Who do you see that represents the change? Do you have anybody in mind?
A change was people like Miguna, revolutionists. We wanted them to come back to Kenya and bring up the revolution, and we change the system which is currently each and everything that Mwananchi and the Wanjiku were supposed to have been benefiting with.
Okay, so something radical.
Something from not really radical, but somebody who's fed up with this government, who's really feeling the pain of this government.
And what makes you think Miguna wouldn't get in? Say you did vote for him and he did win the elections. What makes you think he wouldn't change, or he wouldn't be the same as whatever it is you're looking to oust?
Okay, Miguna, from the. I've been a very big fan of Miguna Miguna, and the way he sounds, he sounds like somebody who is bitter with the kind of politics that is being played in Kenya. So we want such people who really feel the pain. We don't want people who are just there listening to a few wananchi who are telling them you are good. Yet in the real sense, they are still a product of the kind of leadership that is going on now. So we want people who are not in leadership before, who have felt the pain of being outside leadership, and they know the effect of what those leaders have, the impact they have on the wananchi.
Right. Okay. Interesting.
Dennis, thank you very much for your contribution today.
Okay. Thank
Have
you
a good
so
day.
much.
Thank you.
Calling in from Kisumu, we have Weber on the line. Good morning, Weber.
Hello, Eric.
Yes, good morning. You're in the Situation Room?
You see, whatever Njeri is talking,
Yep.
You see, Sonko has got is a generational man,
Yes.
and in terms of maturity, he's not up to that standard. So I would advise, if Ruto will want maybe to woo the voters, maybe he could get a voter of Paranya. Because Oparanya is kind of maturity, and if you look at the development structure that is put in place, it can woo voters. And also is neighboring Kisumu, because to some extent there are people who are not even who can support Oparanya.
So your crystal ball is seeing Sonko Oparanya. No, Ruto Oparanya.
Ruto Oparanya.
Ruto Oparanya. When you say Sonko is not mature enough, what do you mean?
You see, given the governorship, if you look at the track record, he has not performed so much well, and you can imagine if Sonko can be the deputy, and for instance the president is not around, this guy he makes decisions from the mouth, not from the head. So
Sonko has done quite well, actually. In the last financial year, he's built 100 kilometers of road, and he expects to build another 115 this year. That's a lot more than any government has actually done within Nairobi. Furthermore, he's been very active in terms of health and building cancer centers. I understand what you mean in that he's outspoken and outrageous, and I think he's playing to the arena there. He's not talking to, sort of somebody going...
so-called mature
he's not talking to the mature. He's not talking to the CEO of a bank. He's talking to the dozens or the masses, and they're listening. And in terms of, what can he do if the president leads for a little bit? This is what I talk about, having strengthened institutions and laws and so on in place to ensure that we don't have, a Rasputin or somebody crazy. Do you see what I mean?
But you see, Jerry, you see, Sonko is from Ukambani. It maybe, let's forget about whatever the voters. Sonko is from Ukambani. And you see, right now, all eyes are eyeing on the western side and the Nyanta side, because people are hoping and thinking that Ruto can shift the eyes to the western or the Nyanta side.
I think that would be Ruto's hope. It would be a very easy vote to bring together. If they could come together, it would be a very easy block to win, because I think they're the second largest tribe in Kenya. But they never come together, so I don't think Ruto can rely on that vote.
Look at the coordinates. You see, like for example, we've not spoken about even the cost, because according to my
crystal ball
and my understanding, I think Ruto is kind of, he wants to bring the retiring governors together, and then maybe he promised them a government. And you see, people like Sonko, people like Mutua, people like Kivuza, Joho.
Sonko wouldn't necessarily be a retiring governor. He's still got the possibility of
term.
another term. But that's not, it's not rocket science, so it's not a stroke of genius to bring the retiring governors together. I'm sure whoever's running against him will think to do the same. It should go without saying.
Sonko will not be running for governorship, because I remember at one time we said it was the only one-term governor. Because according to my understanding, maybe if this thing of governorship, it was pushed. It was not like Sonko, he wanted it like for real. It was like a push from
by
the
whom? Who pushed him?
The Jubilee government.
Oh, I don't think so. There was a lot of resistance from the Jubilee government at some point.
A faction of the Jubilee government.
From Sonko.
In terms of him being governor, I would have thought there was. I speculate, of course. I don't know.
Anyway, that was my verdict there.
Okay, so Oparanya. How do you say? Oparanya. Okay.
Yeah.
Weber, asante sana for calling in from Kisumu. Are you within the CBD? Can you see the status of traffic there?
No, I don't. No, not within the city.
Okay. Thank you very much and have a good day.
Thank you.
In the Situation Room this morning, the big conversation, Kenya's biggest conversation. We are looking at Njeri's crystal ball. She sees Ruto Sonko as a ticket for the presidency in the 2022. What do you think? Do you see the same? Well, we've had callers who've seen Ruto Lusaka, who are also of the opinion that we got Ruto Oparanya. 0719-012-600. We'd love to know what you think. Call us in.
Spice FM. Spice up your life.
Calling all homeowners present and future. It's time to live your dream in your dream home. Whether you're looking to buy or simply renovate it. From Friday 27th to Sunday 29th of September 2019 from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. come on over and be part of the Owner Home Expo at KICC, courtesy of the Standard Group in partnership with the Property Show. Get to interact with home developers, real estate representatives, financial advisors, as well as other private and public players in the market to help you realize your home goals. It's your window of opportunity. Your door has finally opened and entry for all will be absolutely free. Owner Home Expo.
Find a home.
Traffic.
All right, definitely coming off Ngong Road at the Dagoretti area, we have the news of the school that has a collapsed wall where children have died this morning, unfortunately. Rescue efforts are currently ongoing, but that has also caused and compounded the issue that we have with traffic around that area. Just in case you are in that area, that is what is going on. All right, coming into town from Westlands this morning is absolutely bumper to bumper. Traffic is not moving at all. Getting into the CBD from Langata Road, coming from Mombasa Road, and also coming from Jogo Road and Thika Road as well. We do have issues as you're trying to get into the city. There's so many sirens along Ngong Road. That's what everybody's saying, and this is because of the situation at the school where a wall has collapsed. So just in case you're getting onto traffic now, that is the situation. Thika Road is a parking lot, unfortunately, and we have a lot of traffic on that road this morning. It's around about the hour where traffic will be compounded in different parts of the city. So this is what's going on. Again, if you have an alternate route or you have other information that we need to share, don't hesitate to give us a call or send us a message on 0719 012 600.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
You are in the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. Njeri Thorne, C.T. Muga, Ndu Okwana, I'm Eric Latif. We're all in the room. We also are having this developing story where 4 children have been confirmed dead after a wall collapsed in Ngando Primary School. Oh no, it's a Precious Talent School in Ngando area of Dagoretti. Ambulances, rescue efforts are actually ongoing there. There's a lot that we are seeing on our social media handles. We're also posting it on Spice FM KE. From the news that we get from the ground is that 4 children have been confirmed dead. Some dozens others are feared trapped inside after a wall collapsed in the school. This is Precious Talent School in Ngando. This is along Ngong Road in Dagoretti area, of course. This is a tragic news this morning, really tragic news this morning. We wish all the best to all the families that are affected. Of course, we'll keep updating you on exactly what's happening there. The Situation Room this morning, we're having a conversation on Succession Mondays, which is where Njeri Thorne looks at her crystal ball and starts to predict, of course, based on various factors, as she tells us, on what exactly she sees happening in 2022. The alignment that she's seeing today is Mike Mbuvi Sonko actually getting a strong position in national politics and being picked by William Ruto as a running mate for William Ruto in the presidency of 2022. And well, Jerry, you're saying, looking at what Mike Sonko has in terms of capital, what he brings is a political capital. He brings in a different demographic. He has countrywide appeal. He has he's able to marshal people and marshal voters around him. And that's what every politician is looking for, the numbers.
Absolutely. Before I go back into that, just to send out my thoughts and prayers to the children that are still stuck in the building, and of course, the parents of all those involved. I think it's quite tragic, that sad affair. Yes, I was talking about Sonko's appeal on a national platform. Of course, we've got the example of Baringo, and that's quite far-reaching. We're not talking about a neighboring county such as Kajiado or Kiambu, where Sonko's tentacles can be felt from Nairobi. This is Baringo we're talking about, so he's definitely got that national appeal, and I think it stems from the fact that he speaks not only to the youth but to the masses. He is sort of the Robin Hood of Kenya 2019, except of course he's not stealing from the rich to give the poor, right? He's got a slightly different strategy. It's very populist as well. My issue with Sonko is short-term sort of stopgap measures that he has for long-term problems, which I'm hoping, if he does come in, it's something he changes so that he leaves an actual legacy, as opposed to, a lot of people do complain about the fact that yes, he helped us out, but the system is still what it is, and he could have changed that. So it's more about putting in place legislation to ensure that certain things don't happen. So for instance, if he's saving a child or somebody from a hospital bill, how about trying to legislate so that there's free access
Hospital
to
care, right.
absolutely,
Medical care,
which captures a lot more people. So I think
is
for me
longer
that
term.
would be one of my biggest criticism for Sonko.
Yeah.
He does it very well though for PR. He does know how to dance in the arena. He gets the limelight. The media love him as well. So he's got that appeal. He's also, of course, as I said earlier, non-tribal, which for me is probably his biggest appeal if he's going to be a pioneer in non-tribal politics as we move forward for future generations. He comes in as non-tribal, but it also worked against him when he does need a tribal base to maybe support him in certain instances. He doesn't have that yet. I think maybe it's something he's looking to build. He's no longer working from his Nairobi office, so maybe it's something he's doing in the background. But I think tribes he'll be a magnet anyway for the Kamba people naturally. But I do feel that he does represent everybody. He doesn't sort of brand himself as a Kamba leader. I think he will evolve into this over time.
There are those that have accused Sonko of being big-headed. Look at how the relationships that he had with his former deputy governor. They appear to be working together when they were campaigning, but also there was that fear of, would Sonko really, really work with Polycarp Igathe? And after that, we saw Polycarp Igathe saying, really, I don't feel like I'm delivering the promises that I made to the electorate when I was asking for them to vote for us. Do you see him actually also working with William Ruto, or being second in command to William Ruto means that William Ruto is the boss?
With Igathe, it was two styles, different, completely conflicting and clashing styles of leadership. You have one that's, sort of on the ground for the people, and then you had Igathe, who's coming from the corporate world and, is running structures and managing processes as opposed to people, which is now what Sonko does. So as deputy president, I see him doing very well in terms of electioneering and the campaigns. I see him bringing people, and will probably have the largest voter turnout because he would encourage young people to come out and vote as well.
I see like you're prescribing the same pill for Ruto. Like you'll have a deputy who's tangatangaing as Ruto is trying to work.
I actually see I see him moving to Tanga in the next few weeks with the spate of recent events.
Why is it that we are not paying attention to something I mentioned, not to me, to something I said?
CT, do you need some attention? TLC?
In the run-up to the last election, what I mentioned as having happened in Baringo, how many times do you see an electorate asking for an individual? Now, the end of that story was this. A helicopter was actually sent to go and collect Sonko to bring him.
Yeah. And in this case, I would think it would be inevitable then what happened thereafter. by virtue of the fact that he is a human being, when you see things like that play out in a public arena whereby the people are asking for him,
Your
and
head.
then you go and actually get him by all means necessary to address the people, to then pave the way for you as whoever was preceded to speak, for you then to have the floor. He must have spoken first for you to have the floor. And all the other things that happened, the hero worship that ensued because of the things that he then did, how he was able to appeal to the masses by virtue of the things that he did, from paying hospital bills to providing transport, etc., etc. There is no way he would not have gotten a big head, if we're going to put it as simply as that.
My concern is this big head and all this support and excitement around him, and sort of previous support and facts and figures, i.e. the votes he got in Nairobi and him being called and picked by a helicopter to go to and speak to the crowd in Baringo. I hope it doesn't get to his head to a point he thinks he can run for presidency, because we've seen that happen in a previous regime.
He's already said it. Don't hope. He's already said it. He's eyeing the presidency.
Why?
So-
Believe it or not, interesting to know why,
believe it or
Jerry.
not,
It would
if
be
he-
interesting
if-
to
no,
hear
but-
why
but-
you would not
no,
want
even
him.
why not?
Why not? Why would you not want him to
Because
run for
then we
president?
would
I would
be
like to
losing.
understand.
He would be losing his capital.
head.
No, not his head. Not his head. Because I don't think he has the wherewithal
And why
to
would
run
he be
for
losing
pregnancy.
his capital and not gaining it?
I think he wouldn't get the presidency and he would end up with nothing.
But that's the same thinking that was there when he stood for senator. It's the same thinking that was there when he stood for governor.
And do you know what? I wouldn't be 100% surprised in that if people are disenfranchised, they're angry. We heard somebody talk about a revolution. People are feeling, the economy,
need-
they
we
can't,
need change.
the cost of living is increasing. We're
Yeah.
not seeing the impact or feeling the impact of development. If people are angry enough, that's the sort of radical change they might be looking for.
That's what actually they could go for.
That's what
Just
happened in the US.
to show that we're actually listening to you, CT. Yeah? When you're talking about how the crowd was actually asking for Mike Sonko, maybe they were just asking for the WAG. Every political campaign has its WAG.
You know, my
If you
bro,
look at it from
brother, it wasn't just in Baringo, it happened elsewhere.
across the country, yes, you're
And
looking
I'm
for
asking
the
you the
entertainment
question,
factor in a
Who
campaign.
Who else did they ask for? There were people who had plenty of WAG. Why?
Why him?
You know,
This was the
you
one.
have changed
This was the
before
one
you.
national WAG.
The
There's a
question
point
is,
I'm trying
would
to
the
make here.
establishment and the system let him be?
There's a
That
point.
is the
There's a
question
point.
here.
I'm going to ignore that question for the time being and continue with my train of thought. Then I'll come back to it. The point I'm trying to make here is this: you are actually seeing change in the making, and you have built that argument very well, and you are not following up on the consequence of what you're seeing. When someone like Sonko comes up as a leader, it is not accidental. He is there because he represents something that people need. Otherwise, he wouldn't be there.
Sure.
He would have been a one-term MP gone. He was MP, became senator, he's now governor. He wasn't nominated, he got elected.
Yep.
People don't elect people they don't like. Forget development, forget all that stuff. They must feel that this person represents something that is useful to me.
There's a connection. They connect to
Yes,
this person.
yes. Now, that connection is not just about to go down, because the track record of this particular government is at the very best dismal.
And we're looking at a situation whereby he was able to fill a gap. He was able to fill a gap that people were looking for to be filled, that obviously was not filled by a government. So now you're looking at a situation whereby he was the answer. Okay, have it a populist messiah per se, and it's what people were looking for in terms of what we can have now that can be done for us now. We're not looking at the promises that were made that were unfulfilled by government. So now we're looking at an individual who was able to fill those holes. So he does something for
But
people. He does do something. He does fill some gaps.
President,
No, unfortunately, I can't.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I can't.
Trump,
All right.
and
Why
all those
don't-
stunts he pushes.
Why don't we go down memory lane? Who thought Daniel Arap Moi would be president of Kenya? He was a really, genuinely unlikely president.
He was a complete outsider.
He was unlikely.
in those days.
And he was fought, and he was fought 24 years down the line. The man left the seat.
But he didn't fight the system.
Who
he
would
was
have-
very. It was appeasement. He was very calm. And,
That-
Something.
and
No,
he
no,
wasn't
no,
as
no,
crazy
no,
He's
no,
before
playing
him
the
being
system.
president.
No.
Before him being president, I mean, Sonko is crazy. The thought of it is outrageous, and
But-
probably.
Jerry, it is very easy to justify certain things after the fact, okay? You are forgetting what you call the role of chance in his being president. Let's look
Don't get me wrong. I would want a Sonko presidency.
Let us look at
I wouldn't mind one.
No, now you're shaking my foundation.
No.
That amount of change in this short space of time is unlikely.
I told you to give it a few minutes.
Let's test our institutions and our structures as a country.
From one moment, can you imagine Sonko as president? And the other one is, I don't know, I wouldn't mind. I think I like Sonko as president. So which is which? If we had Sonko as deputy president, basically this is a Sonko presidency as well, right? And then we'll start talking about miaka yangu tano, miaka yangu kumi, miaka ya Sonko kumi. We are basically heading down that road.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. The particular government we have in place, the legality of that government was brought into question. The matters surrounding it were numerous.
Which government?
This one, the Jubilee government that we have in
this
place.
current government?
Yes, went into the Supreme Court. We had another election, and we had this.
Legality was not brought into question.
Actually,
legality wasn't brought into question by whom?
Actually,
by whom?
when people go to court, what do they go to court for?
Yes, the legality of the election process, and then the second time there was no question.
But why
Anyway,
is
continue with your
it
train of thought.
why is it that Eric is splitting hairs?
Go on with your
I
train
say
of
one
thought.
thing, Njeri, what is it that you do on the weekend? You're infecting Eric. Eric disagrees with me, then agrees with me. Please decide. Are you going to continually disagree and disagree? Then in that case, I'll simply keep quiet and listen to the two of you because you're going to be making my point.
All right, don't lecture. Come on.
So go on. So what are you
Sorry,
saying?
sir.
What are you saying in terms of
Apologies,
of
sir.
Sonko and Sonko being a child of chance, right?
No.
And getting to that point of presidency.
No, I'm trying to explain that this issue of having a presidency who's unlikely is not new to the country. That's what I was building on. And I'm saying that leadership is equally that way. It is unlikely.
Do you see him as a likely individual to deliver for the country then in terms of what we are talking about, in terms of moving forward? In terms
deliver what
So
exactly?
likelihood, City. So here's a question. Likelihood. Going by what we were discussing first, that the government has failed its people. The government is actually wasting opportunity.
Do you see him as an individual who will be able to
Sonko
fill in
can
those
do
gaps,
better?
grab
Sonko
those
government,
opportunities,
yes, delivering
use
opportunity.
them, raise the profile of a
Yes.
country?
So based
Yes.
on what? Let's do the track record of Nairobi. What opportunity
I'll
in
tell
Nairobi
you why he
has
would
been
be better
exploited?
at delivering.
Thank you.
You've not even heard what she has
No,
to say.
she knows. But
Lord.
I've brought forth these arguments before.
No.
She
This,
knows.
mine
Carry
is a
on.
bit left field.
The
Mine is
prophecy
is not
antics in this room
something
are
you'd have
amazing.
you'd
So
have
he'd be
spoken
better at
about.
It's
delivering.
not textbook.
Well, in terms of wastage, we said corruption. We're hemorrhaging money through corruption as a country. That's well known. I think maybe Sonko's ability to get caught up in intricate, complex schemes to steal money would be limited. His ability to come up with these schemes
He wouldn't
might
be able
be
to do that on
somewhat.
his own. That's a very intellectual way of insulting. That's a very intellectual way of insulting the man's
Really?
ability.
might be somewhat limited. So in that sense,
So you're saying
he would be great to have in.
you're assuming that there's no intricate corruption going on in Nairobi right now.
I think when it's done, it's quite basic through tendering and so on.
not
But in
clever.
terms of like dams and coming up with schemes for
What's
dams,
sophisticated
and
about
so
dams?
on,
I mean,
to
what-
be able to go and convince the
honestly
Italians.
speaking, the
No. What
Jerry,
I'm saying is,
what is
I think
sophisticated
he'll
about a dam?
steal less. I think he'll steal less,
Put it that way. But
and I think he's
dam,
got a smaller appetite than those at the helm right now.
Okay.
you know this
He's
one,
quite happy to have razzmatazz and so on. He's not looking to
You know,
create a
do
dynasty.
not misunderstand someone's style for being the person.
Mm-hmm.
Just because someone has enjoyed a certain way of dress and a certain way of delivery.
No, it's an expression of self. The
It
way you
is an
dress.
expression
so
of self, but
this
also
guy's
an
happy with the
understanding.
mosquitoes and so on. He's not trying to land helicopters.
He's speaking to his tribe.
Yes, he is. And he's telling them, I'm with you. And they understand it
His
and they
tribe's
resonate.
hardly
I
wearing
get you.
Prada and Versace.
I
no.
got you.
Unless he's creating an aspirational image by
That's
wearing
it.
Versace
But that
and
is
so
it.
on.
It's socialite. This is what it's all about. I mean, showing
What is the power of
some
perception in
aspiration.
politics in Jerry, would you say?
The power of perception, what is it?
yes.
How do you mean by that?
What I mean is it not almost entirely perception, really?
Absolutely. Yeah, it is 100% perception.
Yes. So if someone understands that rule and goes by it and sells it well, he has the making of a president.
Okay, I just don't think he's that greedy then. Maybe I do have a soft spot for the guy. I don't think he would steal as much as, let's say, as much as what we're seeing with the dams, for instance.
You know, someone who goes
And we
about
were
a
told the
social
same
agenda
thing
that
about the people we have right now.
You know, Eric, someone who goes about a social agenda that we probably disagree with because we say it isn't structured, it isn't this. But you're forgetting that the people who are receiving it seem happy with it.
Absolutely, and
So
we don't
why
have
are you
to use-
suggesting that they should do something else? This thing that was supposed to be done wasn't done.
Sure.
And has not been done for years. That's why this new thing seems to work for them.
So we're saying that the people of Kenya generally are happy with the handout politics
Yes.
that we have, as opposed to looking at long-term, agendas being put in place to make sure that the country is continually moving forward and not missing out on opportunities and not missing out on positive development. We'd rather a situation where we received something now that can, take me a couple of days, as opposed to take me through those generations that we talk about that would be affected positively in the long run.
You're beginning to
Is
sound-
that the kind
No,
of people
you're
that we have?
You're beginning to sound like a Kenyan politician.
Those are the kind of people that we want
It's
to
a
put
song.
in place, who are going to help
It's a song
us.
that the electorate hear all the time. And
Over
they don't,
and over
and
and
they
over
don't see
again.
anything. This is the point.
So,
They
this,
hear
no,
it.
so that's my question. So are we comfortable with that? We'd
Yeah.
rather have that where you give me a little bit here,
Wouldn't
as
you?
opposed to
No, we wouldn't.
in terms of looking
Wouldn't
forward.
you?
In terms of
Wouldn't
looking
you?
forward.
Wouldn't you? Looking forward to what?
In
Is it
terms
more
of
poverty?
going forward now,
Looking
we're
forward
saying
to what?
that
More hunger?
going
Looking forward
forward,
to what?
going forward in terms of taking steps, actually moving forward now to going to the next year. Are we saying that we'd rather a situation where somebody's going to come out and hand out, as opposed to believing or trusting in a system that would actually move the country forward? Is
This
that where we're going?
this system that you speak of, when has it provided these things it keeps talking about?
That's what I'm saying. So are we saying we've gotten to the point whereby we'd rather the handouts?
A long time ago.
They would,
that's what
they
we-
would
so
argue the
there's-
same thing. They would argue the same thing until you started actually doing roads. Initially it was just, let's just have a grader coming onto this road. Let's have a
Fill
grader.
the
let's have a
potholes
grader,
every now and
let's
then.
fill the potholes, until you started actually doing proper roads and proper infrastructure and road network, expanding road network. They would argue the same thing that I talk about, bring a water bowser to provide, to supply water to this area, until they start getting piped water. They would change. That's what they all yearn to have, piped water, not waiting for 5 o'clock when the water bowser comes and we all have to line up with our jerry cans there waiting for water. No, nobody has that. Everybody respects their own dignity. Dignity is one thing that's very, very important. It's critical.
My friend.
Yes,
how
my
often-
friend.
How often is it available? This
What?
thing that is critical and that everybody expects, it isn't.
That's why we are electing the people. That's why
No,
we
no,
know
no,
it should
no,
come.
no.
We know we should have
this
piped
particular
water.
circle that
And
you're
when
creating, I'm not going into.
When you get into that position of leadership, you know that you are able to actually do this. You know you're able to make sure that you have piped water coming into estates, and piped water that does not, pipes that don't go dry, pipes that don't run dry.
Eric, you do have a
know
point.
that you have a capacity.
You do have a point. So when you see someone, aside from what you're calling the antiques
That's how
and
you
the
soften
theatrics,
someone to us for a clap.
but when somebody actually builds roads, and Yuri has mentioned it, and you see he's working on hospitals, we are seeing, okay, this guy may have some fairly unorthodox ways of doing things, but the structures you speak of, he's working on them
Yeah, I
as
think
well.
the biases
You can
against
see it.
Sonko come from an elite that are used to structures and using blueprints from, say, the Western world. There's new ways to do things, and maybe he's introducing us to them because we are seeing an outcome, and his progress does have an impact on the people. So the resistance is coming, I would say, from an elite that is a minority.
what
But
outcome are
having
we
said
seeing,
that,
Yuri?
is a minority. Well, he's providing jobs and building these roads, for instance.
Where are the roads?
I don't know exactly where.
Yeah,
I can look that
exactly.
up. No, the roads are there. That's fact.
The
roads
roads-
are
the roads-
there.
the roads
No,
are
that's
being
not an
reca-
opinion.
the-
I'm not giving you an opinion, Eric.
I'm
That's
giving
the
you
fact. The roads are there. The
fact
cancer
is
hospitals
the
are there.
roads-
Those
the
are
roads-
facts.
The roads are being
Now-
recarpeted by the Nairobi Rehabilitation Committee, and it's actually happening. It's
No,
big
these are his
recarpeting of
roads, and we can go
No
through it.
new
I will give you
roads.
the facts tomorrow. I'm not here to support and sing his praises. I am giving you facts
You know- True.
about Sonko.
True,
And
true.
I want to look at the viability or feasibility of this guy being the president, because he does, he does enjoy support from the masses for different reasons. He attracts different demographics. I said from the youth through to the unemployed, through to people who don't want this tribal voting, for instance, myself, right through to his very tribe, the Kamba. This guy also has a national appeal. There's something he's doing right. We must consider, if he's president, is he somebody we would want? And what is wrong, and why is it counterintuitive to think of him as president? Is it because we use this blueprint, or we're sort of following a certain formula and structure by the West that isn't necessarily working for us anyway? Maybe the way he does things differently and ad hoc, or however it is, whatever his formula is, maybe we need to start embracing it and coming away from our biases. That's all I'm
You
saying.
see, that's what I was saying. We're looking at the facts and we're failing to face them. You're talking about a man whose popularity isn't going down unless somebody is telling us it is. It's increasing. So how is it that you're doing something wrong which doesn't resonate with the electorate and your popularity increases? How do you achieve this?
I think the worry as well is he's not controllable. He's not malleable per se. So you'll find a lot of people, the heavy hitters, the big investors within the county, for instance, might have been a little resistant.
A little
to him.
uncomfortable.
Uncomfortable with him. He's not what
And
we
more
would call
comfortable with Dr. Kidero.
Yeah, he's because you think he would understand, how business works. But we've seen what happened with Dr. Kidero.
We've seen
and the charges he's facing.
We've seen where that understanding has taken
guys
us.
Those guys that you're talking about were comfortable for many years with the kind of mayors that we had in Nairobi. They are actually
Because
more
they were
uncomfortable
malleable.
with the Kideros. They would be more comfortable with the Sonkos and
Well,
the
they
mayors that we
probably
had.
had the mayors in their pockets, and Kidero was coming in,
And he refused to enter
with
the
his
pocket.
own pockets. In terms of Sonko, I think he's unpredictable to people with big investments in the county. You've seen resistance there, so it would be interesting to see what his reception or the reception of the elite would be like of a president like Sonko. But we are headed there. The youth want him. You've heard people saying, we need a change. We need something different, something radical. He's got a big Kamba voting bloc following him. We've talked about 5 million votes there. We've got the youth. We've got the have-nots, because that's the other tribes that are emerging, which Ruto is priming people for when he talks about the dynasties and the hustlers. It's basically the haves and the have-nots.
And
the majority
how well is that
fall-
message working?
Well, the majority
We'll see.
fall into the have-nots or the less fortunate, whom, of course,
And when
Sonko
these
has
individuals
great
are put
appeal.
into power, it doesn't trickle down to them. Unfortunately, it doesn't. It does not trickle down to them when the haves then get into power, who represent the have-nots.
The
They
situation
don't benefit
room
in
is
any way.
Kenya's biggest conversation. We are looking at Jerry's crystal ball. Ruto, Sonko presidency, come 2022. What do you think? 0719 012 600. It's 9 o'clock. Have a good morning.
Sugar and spice and everything I spice it.
Spice up.
Continuing to look at the situation on roads, getting around about 9 o'clock. We still have the same issue, Mombasa Road heading into the city centre with some traffic as expected at this hour. We have the same situation also on Wayaki Way, Langata Road, Jogo Road, and coming out of the Thika Superhighway, there's traffic as you try to access the CBD. On Ngong Road, of course, we still have the same issue. Rescue efforts are going on at the Ngando area in Dagoretti at the Precious Talent School. We've heard of the wall that collapsed this morning. Rescue efforts are ongoing, so you're going to have a lot of traffic in and out because of that particular situation. Anything else out of the ordinary, give us a call and let's keep you moving. 0719 012 600.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have Jerry Thorne, lawyer, political strategist, an insider in the corridors of power, ready to take on any side of the debate with her signature eloquence and grit. C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to
2 minutes after 9 o'clock. Good morning, and how are you doing? 94.4 in Nairobi, 87.9 in Mombasa, 102.5 in Kisumu, 96.0 Nakuru, 96.7 Eldoret, 90.9 Nyeri, 97.6 in Malindi. We are live streaming on Facebook, Spice FM KE, on YouTube, Spice FM KE, on our website, www.spicefm.co.ke. Remember, this is the first and only 24-hour audiovisual radio station. You can watch us streaming live on Facebook and all those other places. So we are looking at a crystal ball this morning. This is Succession Mondays, but also at the same time, we're following up on what's happening in Dagoretti, where a school wall collapsed this morning. And unfortunately, we have the latest figures are showing us that 6 children have been confirmed dead in that incident. That is at Precious Talent School in Dagoretti. A wall collapsed this morning and it trapped a couple of children inside. Some more are still trapped inside. 6 children are confirmed dead, and the rescue operations are ongoing. Of course, our thoughts and prayers are going out to all the children and all the parents and all the teachers who were affected this morning. Would love to know exactly what is happening there, so we'll be getting the information from our Red Cross people and our crew, for our news crew from Standard Group. That is KTN Kenya, and Standard newspapers are there, and they'll be giving us the information as it unfolds. Very unfortunate this morning, City.
It is very unfortunate, and no doubt a direct consequence of the sort of leadership there in terms of the licensing of certain buildings and structures. And this is what I talk about when I say people don't actually know what they're voting for, because when it comes to crucial matters like this, where licenses have been given to build substandard building, I'm assuming, and it's a great assumption, that it's something along those lines. Yet we pick leaders based on, sloganeering and so on. This
or
is
tribal.
Yeah, absolutely. And these are the sort of things I talk about when I say maybe the electorate is not well equipped. It's not erudite enough. It's not
these aren't
discerning.
functions
It's
that
not
we're going to
discerning
throw at the
enough.
politician.
It's not discerning enough to be voting.
These are the mandarins of county hall.
There are also
Yes.
state organs. There's a National Construction Authority
Yes.
that supervises this.
I don't care. At some point,
there
there's
are-
somewhere where there's an elected official who
Yes,
oversees this.
and that is a governor, for example, in Nairobi.
A governor, for
Yes,
instance.
in
Absolutely.
Nairobi.
So that is what I'm trying to say. Are we able to discern what this means for us when we make choices?
How old is this school?
Are people... I don't know how, and I'm not saying it's Sonko. I'm not saying that
No,
1 minute,
I
but
am
I
getting
think
the
it's a
point
good
I'm trying
time
to make is that some of
to
these projects
highlight
took
the
place
Yeah.
when the people overseeing this work were not elected officials. They were state officials.
Well,
They
okay,
were city
absolutely.
functionaries.
But I'm going
Yes.
to take this opportunity to highlight the occurrences such as these that are a direct consequence of some of our choices at the ballot box.
Yeah, and
Because
accept-
we can't make this link. It's very difficult for voters to make this link. Lives have been lost here, but we can't make that, a link between those deaths and our choices at the ballot box.
And these are the things I continue to talk about. When we go about talking about how, because we vote along tribal lines and because we do things in a certain manner,
because
it
we are
means-
accepting
and
it's
then
a
we
new
say
way
that
of
because
looking at
that's the way
things.
it is, we must accept things like that. When things like this continue to happen, when then we cannot make the correlation between things that happen on a tragedy level like this, or things that happen when there's no food in the country, or when prices continue to go high, or when roads are not done, or when medical care is not given, and we are making decisions still based on tribal lines when things like this are bringing the country to its knees day after day after day, and then we continue to say we make decisions along tribal lines and that's the way we do it. Those things have to change.
But how do you
We cannot
expect
say- we
someone
cannot-
who comes from Kitui to vote for someone who is not a Kamba? How do you expect someone who comes from Northeastern?
If that
What we are saying
person
is that we
could
must drive. We
understand-
must begin to drive the
If that
expectation, and we
person
now
could
need to understand the
understand-
link between the decision you make at the ballot box and
things
things like
like
this
this-
that
this
happen.
tragedy.
You know what?
If
When
that
you
person
see
could
the
understand that.
correlation, when you see the correlation,
You don't
and then
care
finally
what
I can
tribe
say,
your
finally I
person
can
is
say, you
from. If
don't
you-
care.
You
don't
are
care where they are
blaming
from.
the wrong process
No, no.
on a
And if
tragedy.
we cannot know,
No,
it's
we're
an
using a
example,
tragedy to
as an
highlight
example,
leadership.
An
You're
example, and
using
we
no
say that
harm
if
in
you
doing
cannot
that.
make
No.
links,
You're
if you
using
cannot make links
examples
like that,
which
or if
do
you
not-
cannot make linkages like that, or make and understand that such things should not happen.
So you vote tribally, buildings collapse.
No, that's not what I'm saying. It's an
That's what you're
example of
saying.
what we're saying.
Well,
If
you're
you
not
vote-
too far off.
Well, okay, fine.
Because
If
maybe
if
your guy who you're voting tribally doesn't care to give the right license.
Yeah, you're looking
because
at
you
that.
You're not
voted
looking
because
at his
you're not looking at his
characteristics and his
character.
values.
You're
Because
not
they're
looking at what he would
populist,
do
because-
in government. You're not
because
looking
they
at the
came to
fact
you
that
and they
maybe
appealed
he
to
would
you.
make decisions that would put more food on the table, or that would lower the cost of education, or that would lower the cost of medical care, or that would lower the cost of commodities in the
Or
market,
that
or
would
fuel.
lower the
If you're not
occurrences of such
things.
tragic
Even
If you
incidents.
don't
even
make-
going beyond this,
If
even
you
putting
don't
them
make
to
the
account.
decision to do things like that at the ballot box, then yes, maybe someone else should decide for us.
Even beyond the ballot box. So yes, the person is in office, but how do we actually make them feel accountable for what the actions that are, everything that's happening? How do we actually make sure that this leader sees that this is something that you should have made sure, you should have taken all the effort, all the steps to make sure that this doesn't happen?
It's not even
But we
making
are
sure
at
that the
point.
leader sees. It's making sure that the individual who's putting that person in positions of leadership sees that this individual cannot do the job
Oh.
and put somebody in power who
Who
will.
does? And it doesn't matter what kind of language you speak. It doesn't matter what
It doesn't
you
matter
say.
where
It doesn't
you're
matter
from.
how you dress.
It's not about where you're from or the language you speak. It's what you have the ability and the will to do.
and the
person
thinking
who
that we're
put up
saying
this
that
school
should
was
change
probably a
among
businessman.
everybody.
Okay? The person who built the school is a
Absolutely.
business
Who
person.
gave him the license to do so?
The
You need
person-
licensing, you need planning
Yes.
permission. Where was
Yes.
all that coming from?
Yes.
The tragedy, it's actually a tragedy. 6 children are dead. It was
And the number, it appears, is going to
It's
increase.
rising.
A 2-story building, a 2-story classroom, it just collapsed this morning and children are trapped inside. It was early morning. I mean, you've just dropped your child to school and then you're called
Eric,
back
this is an
by
emotive
ambulances.
issue.
It's a
and
hugely emotive
buildings
issue.
don't just collapse. My colleagues are right. Buildings just don't collapse. People build them, and someone didn't do something that was supposed to be done. We have
Yes.
buildings that are 100 years old and they're not
they've
even
survived.
attempting to collapse.
They've survived.
Somebody somewhere didn't do. Now, when you take them to court, you charge them with what? Negligence. Charge them with murder.
Inclusive.
Yes, charge them with murder, because that's essentially what this has led to.
When you take who to court?
First of all, take the owner of the school. Take everyone. Start from the owner of the school.
Well, you have to look at
the
who's culpable.
No. The owner of the school, the person who built the school, the person who gave the licenses. No one escapes this thing.
Yeah, it goes like that. I mean,
That whole chain of people, that entire chain.
with the level, with
People
the degrees
trust
of
you with the
culpability.
lives of their children when you have a school. That's what they do. And then you go and put up a building which collapses.
We'll be getting more from what's happening on the ground. We've got a reporter from KTN News, and we should be trying to call her shortly. This is Brenda Kerubo, who is reporting for KTN News live on location. We'll be trying to get her as well to tell us exactly what's happening, and also we can at some point get a feed from KTN News and show exactly what's happening. So we are showing this actually on our stream. This is on Facebook, Spice FM KE, on YouTube, Spice FM KE, and also on our website. This is www.spicefm.co.ke. We're actually checking the feed from KTN News and showing the imageries of what's happening there, the rescue operation, of what exactly is going on. While at the same time, we are trying to tie this into the quality of leadership that we end up having in positions of leadership, in governance. This informs a lot to having a leader. You see, a political leader who's put in place is they have a primary responsibility to make sure that everybody else does their job right. So it's for example, if you have an executive in the county government, the executive's role is to ensure that everybody is doing their job right. And if somebody doesn't do their job, it's a job of the executive to make sure that their person moves or person is shifted. But we'd like to also to think what you think of to know what you think of what Jerry has told us this morning of the crystal ball. She is seeing Mike Mbuvi Sonko bring on the presidential ballot next year as a running mate for William Ruto, and we'd like to know what you think. Also, at the same time, taking some thoughts and prayers on what's happening to the school in Ngando Dagoretti. 0719-012-600. That's 0719-012-600. So you were saying, Jerry, that we've gotten to a point where look. This is a new style of politics. This is a new style of politician. This is not appealing to a tribal base. This is appealing to a different kind of demographic. And it doesn't matter really how he's delivering. This is the new style of what he considers delivering of service. But we should accept that and move on.
Absolutely, especially comparatively speaking. If you look at Dr. Evans Kidero, who is the pinnacle of the other side of leadership, where you come in with a PhD, you've been at the helm of a corporate, and you're going to run things in a corporate, well-structured manner. And the losses we had as a county therefrom, and the lack of development in the county and how he ran the county, you can see why it lends more credence to this style of leadership, because what Sonko does, he makes whatever he achieves, however small, very visible. He amplifies it. He's great with the media as well. So don't get me wrong. There is that aspect of Sonko's PR that creates the likability factor. So he's very good at that. And that coupled with the fact that we've seen another style of leadership and people weren't happy with it. So they're going to try this. He appeals to the masses. He appeals to the hearts and the minds of the people, which is how people vote, very emotively. We've tried to do the right thing previously. I voted for Kidero back in 2013. having voted along TNA lines for everything else. But I believed for Nairobi, we need a city, somebody for a Nairobi city or a city as important as this, we need somebody who's, experienced, business-like and very corporate and can go out there and negotiate at boardroom level or international level for foreign direct investors and so on. Clearly that didn't work. So I'd be quite happy to vote Sonko, which I did, but based on party lines, for governor again. So that as well has helped. The failure of the alternative has helped boost Sonko to his current position and to the prominence that he's enjoying at the moment.
Sorry, I didn't quite get you. Failure of alternative?
Of the alternative to Sonko. So Sonko was the alternative initially, Kidero being mainstream leadership as we know it for a county and a governor. Now, that failure has also helped propel Sonko's popularity, even amongst people who are probably a little bit, let me use the word conservative. And they've said, well, we did have Kidero. We tried to do the whole proper structured thing. So that has helped Sonko somewhat.
Do you think the inclusion of Polycarp Igathe on that ticket also swayed?
It did. That was to give the impression that there's a balance. Yeah, we're going to get this guy who does things radically. He's unconventional in terms of what we know. I'm not saying it's wrong or right. It's unconventional. He's not as conservative as perhaps we would like him to be, considering, let's say, people have serious investments in Nairobi. So they don't want somebody as erratic or neurotic as let's say, Sonko, as excitable, easily excitable. They want somebody who follows rules and structures and can actually be, he's malleable and he's susceptible to their influence, of which Sonko wasn't going to be. He's speaking to the masses, not the small elite, but the small elite are the ones with big investments in the city or in Nairobi County. So Igathe was there to give it some sort of balance, because remember, as a party, we were also trying to win Nairobi County, party being Jubilee. Because remember, we lost it last time on the basis of Kidero being a good pair of hands with the experience he has and so on.
If Sonko had picked somebody else apart from, and not Polycarp Igathe, not a corporate, would you have voted for him?
I don't know if he would have won. Well, he probably would have won the party ticket, but he would have had it very difficult in terms of trying to convince those that are involved in nominations, party, depending on what route they used for nominations. I forget. But I liked the Igathe balance was fantastic, but of course that proved not to work.
It was a fallacy.
It was not workable.
All along.
Well, Sonko wasn't willing to listen, put it that way.
So now imagine.
Not being willing to listen at the presidential
level.
Yes,
at that level.
Well, it's not. It hasn't turned out to be a bad thing, has it? Not listening isn't necessarily a bad thing. That's what I'm saying. This unconventional style of leadership is not such a terrible thing. Maybe we're reverting to type and to our roots, because all these other things are very Western. It's to do with the model that has been prescribed to us by the West. This is what a leader should look like. This is what a governor should look like. He should be in a business suit and so on. Who says that's
not
the case?
Jerry,
Absolutely,
not
it is. That is what is imposed on us.
It's what the people expect.
What informs these expectations?
It's what the people
It's what they see others doing. We're borrowing. Remember, a lot of what we're seeing in leadership, governance, democracy, we're borrowing.
Eric,
yes, we are a sponge, but
Eric,
also we have something inside.
Which is what?
We do, Eric, but remember, we are a country that still compares things good with Wazungu. We say so
Absolutely.
ourselves. We say so. So it tells you how we think. He has kept time like a Mzungu, meaning...
Yeah, and a corporate structure is a Western structure as well. I hate to be the one to say it, but it's a Western way of doing things.
Let's not pipe water. Let's do Bowsers. It's not Mzungu. It's less Mzungu that way. Let's not build...
No, the type of leadership.
Let's not build new roads. Let's carpet road. Let's not build new hospitals.
Actually, Eric, while you're on that thought, why even carpet road? Just paint them black. Yes,
in fact.
And people are okay with it. So let's keep going. There's more money to dish out and hand out.
This way.
The truth of the matter is this: change comes with a cost in terms of what it is it brings to your thinking process, what it is it does to your expectation, what it is it does to your life.
Uncomfortability of the process itself.
Yes, but the system that Njeri has been talking about, and she's very eloquently put across, it hasn't worked. Okay? We'll throw blame, we'll do this. It hasn't worked. So if someone comes up with something new, so let it be so. We
Well,
are
let's
a
at
country
least
that,
give it a shot.
Yes, we
you
are
know?
a country that embraces change. Please remember, we are. In 2002, one of the most unlikely things, two unlikely things happened just before that. Two unlikely things. It was assumed that someone in President Moi's position would not easily let go of power. He did. He did. You can talk around about it, talk around it. He did. Then, protagonists. It's been assumed that the Luos and the Kikuyus have been at each other's throats from time immemorial. And that the one thing that would never happen in this country was one would vote for the other. It happened. President Kibaki got something like 97% Luo votes. Now, that's change. These things happen. So why can you not have a situation where someone like Governor, His Excellency, Governor Mike
Movies, Sonko.
Yes. Why can the man not become the president of this country?
And you know, he might be encouraged to be a really good president because nobody believed in him. Who knows what would drive him to do the right thing? But my point is, even if we did have a president that was unconventional and unpredictable and we didn't know what he would do, I said earlier, I think we have enough structures in place to make sure there's checks and balances on that. We're enough of a mature democracy, semi-mature democracy, to ensure that we don't have him sort of passing draconian laws and, you know, trying to finish off certain communities or what have you.
What do you all say?
I think we have structures in place in terms of laws, in terms of agencies, different government agencies, and in terms of our sense as a society. I think we've evolved enough to hold people accountable.
This is a Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. In the Situation Room, we have one extra seat, and we call it the hot seat. What do you all say? We all invite Mike Sonko to come in here onto the hot seat.
Yeah,
and let's actually have that conversation with him, you know, and put these questions to him and ask him, would you be a trustworthy person? Show us that we can actually trust you with that kind of position, because he has expressed
guts.
interest
He's definitely
before.
got guts.
So
if we are going to do this for
Mike
Mike
Sonko,
we are going to have to do it for those governors who have declared that they want to be president.
That is okay.
Well, we had Mutua the other day, gave a pretty good spiel.
That is okay.
Over the phone.
This is a hot seat, and this show is about governance, is about leadership, and so we shall put leaders to account. And Mike Sonko is getting an open invitation on air. We want you right here on our
I'm
hot
liking
seat.
the guy.
We
You
have
heard
you
what
right
happened
here on
over
our
the
hot seat.
weekend with his motorcade being, or with him interrupting, or
Some
something.
of his
Presidential
Yeah.
motorcade, yes.
Presidential motorcade.
Yep, and we've seen. So
Interesting.
it's unfolding. We'll see what happens. So as we talk about what's happening in Nairobi and in Kenya, as we wait to get in touch with Ms. Karuba of KTN News to hear what's happening at the school in Gando, we are going to look at what's happening across outside our borders. And this is what's happening in Egypt. This is a clip courtesy of Al Jazeera.
From Cairo to Alexandria to Mansoura, anger and resentment filled Egypt's streets. People protested against President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, calling for him to resign following corruption allegations. In a rare sight, they flooded into Cairo's Tahrir Square before police dispersed the crowd, arresting some. Egyptians are frustrated about corruption, but it was a businessman in Spain that stoked the fire, calling for the protests. Muhammad Ali started posting videos on YouTube and Facebook in early September. He alleged Sisi and his military wasted millions of dollars of public money on palaces, villas and hotels. He said he knew because he built them.
Why spend a huge amount of money building these houses? I never understood his decision. The problem was that Sisi's wife didn't want to sleep in the same home where Mubarak's wife stayed. Sisi's taken low-level corruption to a new level. I built 5 villas for Sisi's aides and a palace for the president in a military camp in Cairo.
1 week ago, speaking at a youth summit in Cairo, President Sisi did not directly address the accusations of corruption against him and his army, but he did say this.
How much do you think a day of operations in Sinai costs? We don't talk about this. Then we see someone daring to come out and defame the army, someone who wants to shock you, panic you, someone who dares to try to disparage the great value of
The
our
great
great
man,
army.
Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, is in trouble.
You call him a great man, but here we are looking at a situation where the second revolution is happening in Egypt. I mean, we have people coming into Tahrir Square, and it's not easy for such a thing to happen because, of course, the government agencies mandated with security would have come in to basically get them out. But here we're not talking about demonstrations. We're talking about outright revolt. And obviously, we look at a situation where El-Sisi came in with the ousting of the former president, the first ever democratically elected president, which was Mohamed Morsi. And he, unfortunately, was ousted from power in 2013. He died in detention earlier, and this was because while he was now serving charges, or rather waiting to be charged with allegations of espionage. And so El-Sisi has been in power since 2013, and after this, the government, or rather the revolters, have now called and said, you know what, we're asking this man to resign because the corruption that we see on a grand scale is terrible. There have been calls for austerity measures to take place in the country. These are youth who, at the time of the first revolt, were actually quite younger, and they are seeing that the benefits of the first revolt have actually not reached them. We're looking at situations where we see poverty levels at 20% in 2018 to 33% in 2013 to 33% in 2019. World Bank has put it at even 60%. So now here the president asks for austerity measures. The people are saying they still see high levels of poverty, and I am saying that revolution just does not work.
A lot is happening in Egypt, and this is what we're going to be discussing in this next half of the hour. Also, at the same time, we'll be hearing what's happening at the classroom that has collapsed in Dagoretti. And on the line, we've got Brenda Karibo, who is a KTN news reporter. Good morning, Brenda.
Good morning. I mean, not such a good morning.
Yes. It's actually indeed a tragic morning. How are you doing?
I mean, it's, let me just paint for you the picture on the ground. We are
Yes.
having locals who are here, and in the last 5 minutes or so, there's another body that has been pulled out of the wrecked building. The structure has officially been flattened, but we saw earlier on quite a number of rescue efforts. But in terms of the children who are injured, they did have quite a number of cuts, and really bad cuts. Because you can imagine, I'll just describe to you the nature of the building just caved in earlier today morning. It is sort of a makeshift structure that houses baby class all the way to class 8. So majority of the classes are actually from the lower primary section, where the children actually, majority of the children are based for lower primary. And then we also have upper primary, who are the ones who occupied the topmost classes. So at around 7 a.m., we do understand the children get here as early as 6:30 a.m. in the morning, and they have their prayers at 6:45, and by 7 they officially start their classes. So the same thing happened today, but at around 7, when they started hearing some cracks in the building. And when they have the cracks, the topmost building where the that are concentrated in the upper primary sections, I think they knew what was happening, so they managed to escape from the building. So the younger ones who are below the age of 10, who are the majority of the ones who are in the lower primary sections, and the classes that are concentrated in the lower part of the building, did not manage to escape, majority of them. So we do understand that this is where most of the injuries came from. Many of them have been injured, and unconfirmed reports from local people who are close to the matter indicate that as many as 8 children could be dead. So, I mean, it's a very sad state of affairs. We did see another body that has been pulled out. The locals over here, they're really angry in relation to the matter. We have quite a number of representatives from the Education Ministry, including the PS, Belio Kipsang, who's set to address the media anytime now. We also have police who are on the ground trying to disperse the crowds, very angry crowds, and parents who are also worried in relation to either the fate of the children who've been rescued, or they have children inside the school, still the structures that are still surrounding, leave alone the building that's collapsed.
Who runs this school, Ms. Karubo? Is it a privately owned? Or is it run by an institution, maybe an NGO, or is it government? Brenda, hello.
Owns the school, so we're talking about a private school. We understand that the school performs really well. I mean, they had their prayers as late as yesterday for the KCPE exams, and incidentally, they have been performing well in relation to this. The school, I understand, began about 8 or 10 years ago. It has been an operation, has been doing very well when it comes to KCPE, but for for the parents who bring the children to these specific schools, like I said, because it does so well in their advance, is the fact that the children come in as early as 6:30 and leave at around 7 p.m. in the morning. You can imagine these are children below the age of 10 who have to be in classes at this specific time. So the parents are saying that the structures that were constructed here were not conducive for the children. They're wondering why it passed government regulations and being set up. They're also wondering why it took so long for the ambulance and the rescue efforts to come in. Because, like I said, we had quite a number of rescue efforts coming from the local government, including the fire engines and the ambulances from either Red Cross or the Nairobi Women's Hospital that is nearby. So locals here are very angry. In relation to the people, the children who have been injured, it's a very sad state of affairs.
Are the rescue operations still ongoing? Are they still children trapped inside the buildings?
Well, not really, because the structure has been flattened.
Right.
Structure has been flattened at the moment, what we've seen. But sadly, we are, when we're just looking at one direction, we just hear locals shouting in another, then we see another body come out. So it's like I said, the place is very limited, sort of a community-based school. So it's very, very, very restricted. So you can imagine with this specific kind of school that does so well, populous, it's very populous. There are many children who go to this school. So they want to ensure that they have everything off the ground in terms of the bodies, sadly. But right now, some of the parents are trying to salvage the books. They're very angry. It's a very angry crowd, I can say, for that matter.
Understandably. Okay.
Brenda, thank you very much for joining us this morning and for all the updates that you're giving us from down there in Ngando. We'll be sure to call you back again for more updates. Thank you very much. This is Brenda Karubo from KTN News giving us an update of what is happening there, where a school collapsed this morning. Precious Talent School has collapsed. The walls have collapsed, actually. So we understand that it's a 2-story building, and it has all come down. It came crumbling down. The topmost building contained the upper primary pupils, and the lower floor contained the lower primary pupils. This is from baby class all the way to standard 6 or standard 3, or it's now grade 3. And many of those who are affected were in the lower floor. This is the lower primary, the younger children. 8 pupils have been confirmed dead, and more of them, of course, are being rescued from there. The building has now been completely flattened. Rescue operations, the rescue workers are there on the ground trying to work out with the children and helping the parents and the local community, who are obviously greatly agitated by the turn of events. Many of them, especially those who cannot see their children, of course, you can imagine what they feel like. So it's a situation that continues to unfold. We will give you more updates on this. This is the Situation Room right here on Spice FM, Kenya's biggest conversation. It's now 9:30. We are discussing what has been happening in Egypt in the last couple of days, where youth up against Mohammed Al-Sisi, right? And they're saying that this man needs to go. Basically, this is it. Al-Sisi must go. Conversation continues.
Calling all homeowners present and future. It's time to live your dream in your dream home. Whether you're looking to buy or simply renovate it. From Friday 27th to Sunday 29th of September 2019 from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. come on over and be part of the Owner Home Expo at KICC, courtesy of the Standard Group in partnership with The Property Show. Get to interact with home developers, real estate representatives, financial advisors, as well as other private and public players in the market to help you realize your home goals. It's your window of opportunity. Your door has finally opened and entry for all will be absolutely free. Owner Home Expo.
Find a home.
How well do you know your country? Given a chance, where would you go? Not so many places, huh? Would you even know how to get there? Yes? No? Maybe? I don't know. Well, oh ye gallivanters and tourists alike, here is your chance to not only know, but also visit amazing destinations in Kenya with complete recommendations, guides, and tips on accommodation spots, wellness stops, and food joints all over Kenya. How you ask? Courtesy of the biggest locally targeted tours and travel magazine, Travelog. Travelog is your monthly pull-out magazine in the Standard newspaper every first Thursday of the month. With Travelog, enjoy the beauty of life that Kenya has to offer. Visit exotic and hidden destinations, be part of amazing conservation campaigns and projects as you simply enjoy Kenya. It's our way of putting Kenya on the map. Grab your copy and be aboard the fun wagon as you improve the quality of your local travel experiences. Travelog, Jione Kenya. Tired of living your same old life? Need to spice it up and add some flavor? Well, we can help you go from living to living it up. East Africa, are you ready to be a part of the most vibrant entertainment scene with the best, freshest music, travel tips and destinations, fashion, tech and health trends, as well as your favorite celebrities' lifestyles? Introducing your favorite entertainment magazine, Pulsar, the ultimate all-in-one guide that will give you more meaning to life. Catch up with your celebrity writers and contributors to stay up to date with what's happening around you, where and how you can be a part of all that. The lifestyle guide that has been missing in your life. Pulsar. Live it up.
98.7 Spice FM, Mombasa. Traffic.
All right, still looking at the situation coming off from Gong Road, and that's because of the collapse that we've seen this morning. So cars are definitely slowing down. I was trying to figure out what's going on in that particular area, but that should dissipate as rescue efforts continue this morning. All right, looking at other parts of the city, we have a better situation coming off Thika Road, as is the situation coming off Mombasa Road, getting into the CBD. And Wayaki Way definitely opened up just a little bit this morning, but coming around about 9:30, we don't have as much of an issue as we did a couple of hours ago. The traffic situation is much better, and if you do see anything out of the ordinary for this hour, please do let us know. But for now, you're moving, and until you have to move much more much later, for now, you're in a good place.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
You're in the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. Spice FM KE on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, www.spicefm.co.ke. In the Situation Room, we've got CT Muga and Jerry Thorn Nduoko, and I'm Eric Latif. We're discussing what's happening in Egypt now. So the youth are really, let's say, fed up. And they're out on the streets again. This time they want Fattah al-Sisi to go.
It's interesting because we're not looking at the same youth. So we can't actually say that they're out, because we're looking at now 8 years since the first revolution, which kind of sparked the Arab Spring. And the people that actually went to the streets to revolt in 2011 is a different demographic from what we see now. And those who are actually leading this particular revolution complain that they did not actually see the results of the first revolution. They looked at a situation whereby they would see, better opportunities, and that has been a word that we've talked about this morning, even in this country today. They've not seen better opportunities for them at a level of work. They've seen, the poverty levels plunge actually since that time. And if we look at what happened when Hosni Mubarak actually was ousted from government because of the revolution that we saw, in came Mohamed Morsi, who then was accused of several things and died while facing charges of espionage earlier this year. However, he was ousted from government by now El-Sisi, which was basically a military coup that took place. And the result of the revolution that happened in 2011 was that there was the first ever democratically elected president in Egypt. And unfortunately, that went down the drain with his arrest, and then because he was one of the Islamic Brotherhood, that saw his arrest, and then that saw, unfortunately, his death later. However, I'm looking at a situation whereby, unfortunately, we have revolutions like this taking place, but they just don't work. The outcome would be that a leader then would be put in place, or a leader then they would say that a particular leader is what was being sought after for that individual to be put in place, then to push the agenda that they were looking for: less corruption, or less to zero corruption. We're looking at less poverty in the country. We're looking at more development in the country. And then those things seem to have then been put in place with this leader. But then there's always a way to get this particular leader out. And now we are seeing a situation whereby the constitution has even been amended by LCC and saying that he wants to remain in power until 2030. He wants to be able to, push his, which is clearly a military agenda, to hold the country in one place. And I'm saying that unfortunately, it looks like even if people do revolt, it doesn't work. Revolution just does, it takes place, but then the results cannot be seen. And for it to actually have been successful, we should, again, in this case, yes, see the results of such revolution.
So this is Arab Spring 2.0.
It's Arab Spring, take two. But unfortunately, I don't know what the result will be if we see a situation whereby, obviously this man is not going to be faced. He's not being pushed. He's not even addressing the issue. He's talking about other things.
That's what they all do, actually. But is there an external hand in this?
Absolutely. And
of course. I mean, Saudi Arabia is very involved in what happens in Egypt. But yes, Jerry.
I was going to say, I think that it was regarded as an utter failure, the first revolution.
Yeah.
But the way to approach this is to compare the expectations and the results of the revolution and what happened and the competing hands within this. The dynamics, although you say the demographics have changed, I suppose time has passed, but the dynamics are the same. It's to do with wealth disparity and people fighting for freedom and democracy for the sake of having an equal footing when it comes to economic empowerment. So usually revolutions do have a basis of economic empowerment. So there'll be suppression, and those will be ingredients that lead up to revolutions. But you'll find at the bottom of it, it's the economic empowerment. You find in very few countries, even if there's a dictator, if people are very wealthy, for instance, the United Arab Emirates, there's very little revolt because everybody is still quite comfortable. So I think at the bottom of it is the wealth disparity. So there's similarities with this one and the first one in 2012 or whenever it was. But what went wrong here was the fact that you now had different interests competing that weren't representative of the interests of those who were revolting. And those were the extreme Islamists, and then you had the external imperialists, so the West, looking to create an environment that was for their best interest or to serve their interests. And we saw that play out when Morsi was democratically elected. And this is the thing with democracy and the West. If they don't like what's happened, suddenly it becomes undemocratic, because of course he was from the Muslim Brotherhood. So what happened there is they decided, they found charges and trumped up charges against him and managed to put him in, and then put the guy they wanted, which is Sisi, who would have served their best interest. But of course, he wasn't representative of the spirit of the actual revolution. So over time, we have come to see this, or it's played itself out to a point whereby he's not representing what people... There was a lot of bloodshed in this revolution, if you remember. A lot of chaos and a lot of instability as well.
It was prolonged as well.
Absolutely. So we're not seeing that. But what we have seen, which represents the West very well, is an increase in the sales of arms and so on. But this is not translating into the livelihoods of the people. Of course, who's selling the arms to them? The imperialists. So it's that interference that I would say that made the revolution not to work. I wouldn't agree with you completely. Yes, the revolution seems like it didn't work, although it was a great change in the first instance to move from what they had, years of Hosni Mubarak and almost a dictatorship, to some element of democracy and freedom. But then you had these external interferences and these two competing elements of sort of Islam and then the Western interest. And we've seen where this has landed us. Sisi was a pawn for the West, and arms were now being sold en masse to Egypt, and Syria got in. And Russia then got in, and so on. You've seen.
And let's not forget Egypt's neighbors, Israel, of course, the UAE, Saudi Arabia. All of them have a hand in this. And when you have a Muslim Brotherhood person at the head of government in so close as Egypt, then of course the repercussions are going to be felt everywhere else. And I think they had even
Well, democracy is democracy internally. They can't say we don't like this guy, so we're going to take him out. He was elected democratically, Morsi this is, but he didn't serve the interests of the Western powers, and so they found a way to oust him, which they did, and they brought this guy in. But at the end of the day, you've seen it doesn't represent the anger that led to the revolution in the first instance. And some actually propose or suggest that the revolution itself was propelled by the West. It's called the Twitter revolution. It supposedly started on Twitter, but
it did, because I mean, looking at how it started this time, it came from this gentleman, Muhammad Ali, who actually put on a video of himself talking about the fact that he had actually been involved in building a lot of these villas for the current president, El-Sisi, and his family. And this is where this is what sparked it. This is what now got people to go.
It's a catalyst.
This was a catalyst for them. Of course it was there, but that's what I'm saying. This was now what got people up and out and basically got them into Tahrir, for example. But we're also looking at a situation whereby it has played out very well in terms of, if we're looking at the first revolution and what it did for other Arab countries who now believed that, they couldn't take it anymore because they saw that it actually worked. Yes, there are external forces, but at the same time, even with this revolt, we don't even know. Of course, it's maybe still early days, but we don't know how far it will go in terms of getting El-Sisi out. And then we come and, because of external forces, yes, then revolutions won't work or can't work. Have we seen a situation in a different part of the world that even with external sources or with external manipulation or interference that they did work?
You've seen it in the Ukraine and so on.
You're talking about a fire. Fires don't work unless they find something combustible or something that they can ignite. Yes, Twitter spread the message.
But it was still the message.
It wasn't the message. The people were ready for that message. The message on its own didn't do anything. I'm sure prior to that, there'd been opposition leaders. It wasn't as though there were people who didn't oppose Hosni Mubarak.
The Muslim Brotherhood had been there for long.
Exactly.
But now it was out in the open.
There was sufficient discord within that population. And what they required was something just to spark it at the right time. Because remember how it spread. And if you look at the leadership in those countries, they were not very dissimilar.
If you remember, it started off in Tunisia with the gentleman, I forget his name, burning himself because he was stopped for not having a license for selling oranges, and he burnt himself, and it triggered a series of events that led to the ousting of the leader at the time in Tunisia. And then, of course, there was the dominoes effect. But there was a lot of interest from the West. They pretty much dismantled the region and re-established it in a model that fitted to serve, or that served their best interest. So we have to keep that in mind, that there was likely to be more upheaval because the discord or the charge and the anger from the people then, it wasn't sorted out, because instead it was Western interests and then competing Islamic interests that came
You realize
into
a
play.
bit too late that you are a pawn in somebody else's game. So you think that you are actually advocating a certain agenda.
No, they were, and I think it was fueled by the West.
You know why it works is the agenda does exist.
Yep, but it's hijacked.
Yes.
It's hijacked by somebody else.
You actually think it's in the direction you wanted, but someone else has taken control and is heading elsewhere.
Somebody else is pulling the strings.
But you're
and
in it
running with
because you think it's heading where you want it to head.
And then you realize when you get to the end that, oh, wait a minute, this is not where we wanted to go.
And the end that we're talking about is another leader having been put in place that actually is not going to fulfill what you thought the revolution would do for you. And in this case, are we looking down the same barrel again? Or are we looking at a situation whereby, there's going to be revolt, there's going to be bloodshed for, the next number of weeks, months, whatever. And we have, the leaders of this revolution saying that, yes, this is actually going to get us where we want to go. Or do we look at revolution then and we say, you know what then I think revolution is? Revolution then is getting people to not be comfortable with the status quo. If we're looking at issues with corruption, we're looking at higher poverty levels, we're looking at development not going the way it should want to go, then revolution is continuing to make,
stand up
and speak out. Revolution is not one thing that happens at one time. Revolution then, way we should look at it, is continually speaking about things that we the people are not comfortable with. We the people would not want this country to go in a certain way, because then what you do is that you create a situation of kind of instability in the sense that, you can go ahead and sit in that position. However, we are not comfortable with it. So revolution doesn't have to be one action that happens at one time that we can now put history to it and say it happened at this time. But it should be constant until something is done.
The revolution will not be televised. The revolution will happen. It's a continuous process.
I believe the revolution then is continuous process, and we cannot say it's something that until generations to come will actually see.
Although I still
the
have a
results
feeling
of
that
it.
even what's happening right now in Egypt, it's somebody else's agenda that actually being. So yes, so somebody is controlling this narrative, and they're trying to get something done to fit them. It's not necessarily the people. When the people got there and they thought they participated in an election, they elected Mohammed Morsi, the Muslim Brotherhood, and Morsi got into power and immediately started, changing constitution from left, right, and center. That was the first thing that Morsi got and started doing. So when Al-Sisi came and actually overthrew Morsi, there wasn't outcry from the people.
No.
Why? Because they felt, hey, Morsi,
Even
surely,
that one that we had
you've
in place
gotten
was
in
not-
there, we've democratically elected you, and you're changing the constitution
the
as well.
revolution, Eric, you actually got to the heart of the matter. The revolution had a new target. It was called Morsi.
Yes.
They elected him in, and they figured, okay, then
even this is not working.
very long after they wanted, what on earth did we get ourselves
What is
into?
this?
Now, anything that is referred to as a revolution, in whatever form, believe me, it cannot happen if it doesn't have mass support.
True.
Yes. Revolutions the world over. It's the one ingredient they have. And you asked the question, where has it worked?
Well, it's worked in Latin America. It's worked in a number of countries. I think one of the key ingredients is a large enough middle class. That becomes the tipping point. If there's a large enough middle class, which they may have not been in the Arab during the Arab Spring. And of course, also the old regime in the Arab Spring was involved in re-establishing.
Why do you say middle class, Jerry?
Why? Now you go into the ingredients of a revolution, and it's probably
No,
why
no,
we
no,
haven't
no,
had
no,
a
no,
revolution
not necessarily,
here
not
because they've got the
necessarily.
most to lose. The middle class has the most to lose. You'll find when there's a revolution, it's people who could potentially earn but are not earning, so they're angry. It's not the completely impoverished and hopeless people who would revolt. It's people who see the potential of earning but can't earn. It's that anger, that negativity that drives it, along with many other factors. I've oversimplified it. But having a large middle class has helped previous revolutions. A good example is Latin America in the 19th century. But the most sort of notable example is, of course, the French Revolution, when the middle class took over the nobility. And that was again because of anger of not being able to earn. And it was when the middle class got hungry. That's when you saw the change. When there was no bread. There were some people, there was never any bread anyway. So when there was no bread for the middle class, and you have the famous Marie Antoinette quote of "let them have cake," that's when you saw the shift. There has to be a large enough middle class. For a number of reasons, middle class can also organize themselves better.
In the modern day revolutions, however, there's also that, if you look at the Ukraine revolution, so yes, people went, they filled out the streets for months, and then they got somebody who they felt was not, bent towards Russia, and they got them into office. What happened? Still, they felt disappointed. I think modern day revolutions are actually always being controlled by somebody externally, and that's what we are seeing happening. Look at Venezuela right now. What's happening in Venezuela? So yes, there's a modern day revolution, but really, you've got the US playing a controlling hand in it.
I think also if maybe there was a regional body in during the Arab Spring to help negotiate and manage and
they
and
do have
regulate.
they do have
The Arab League.
We have the Arab League.
The Arab League is
The
a very
Arab League is
powerful.
there. The Arab League.
It's a very powerful regional body.
Yes, but they're more
which has one
about
power.
oil.
It has one
and
power.
negotiating. It's about oil and OPEC and negotiating. They don't have the equivalent of, say, the EU that has all the pillars, including legal pillars, social pillars, and
What makes you say
economic
that?
and trade pillars. Because that was one of the reasons that is explained by the Arabs themselves, that they didn't feel they had support from each other because they didn't have enough. Like if you speak to professionals in the region and you ask, why do you feel that it was an utter failure, all these revolts and upheavals, they say we didn't have people to help us organize
Okay.
regionally.
Jerry, does the African Union have the structures?
No, we don't. No, we
They
don't.
do.
It does. The African
do.
Union
Yes.
Commission
They
has.
do.
The African Union is not able to stop xenophobia in a
It
town.
doesn't mean they don't
It's
have
not
the
that-
structures.
It's not for lack of structures.
That's what I'm trying to get you to understand, that it isn't for lack of structures.
It's
It-
for lack of will, I
Yes,
suppose.
yes,
Okay.
yes, yes. The
Understood.
structures
Similarly
may
to
be
the
in
Arab
place.
League, the Arab League is
Understood.
actually a very powerful body. It's
Yes.
only that if you look at it, yes, what is it that is common among all those
I think
Arab
it must have
states?
been compromised at the time by the West, because those were the competing interests, the
External
Western
hands.
and Muslim.
Well, I think definitely if we're looking at modern day revolution, because yes, the French Revolution worked, and that's how you see France that beginning to operate in the way it does today. However, the interference of external factors was, I don't think there was.
Please
mean,
understand something about the French Revolution. Do you know where they got their inspiration from? The American Revolution.
Right, but what I'm saying is, in terms of interference, was there any kind of interference in order for the revolution to now live out its
My dear, there always is.
live out its process?
There always is.
Compared to what we have today, whereby individuals who are pushing for a revolt or
Not as
pushing for a revolution today actually don't even know where the head is.
We actually can't compare it with today in the way you're saying it, for the simple reason that
I'm saying that today, with all the factors that we have in place, revolutions don't work. I mean, we can't say that it's one revolution. We're going to revolt and we're going to be in the streets for this number of time to get a particular leader out of power, for
The people-
example, for
people don't
whatever.
have a say.
They don't. They think they do, but they actually don't. So
don't.
I think in order for such things to come to a head, it looks as if we have to be in a constant state of revolt. And now, when the powers that be either get tired of pushing their particular agenda, or when the people have said, you know what, it is enough, we're going to
All right.
continue to be in this position, that is when we're going
if
to
I
see
were
some
to
kind
follow,
of
if I were to
results.
follow your logic, then Kenya should have been in revolt a hell of a long time ago.
Yeah, but I don't think if we look at Kenya and the people, we've talked about it before. I don't think
We
Kenyans
called
are
it the
comfortable with
second
the
what?
status quo.
We called
If
it the
Kenyans
second
were
what?
not, we called it the
That
second
question-
revolution.
that
If
question I won't
Kenyans were not,
answer it.
if Kenyans were not comfortable with the status quo, because I think Kenyans are comfortable, and just like Jerry said, hungry, pushing enough.
so-
Or
Ken-
what's
Kenyans
it
are
says?
comfortable.
Kenyans
So-
avoid.
Kenyans are comfortable, or
Kenyans
we avoid,
are otherwise
or we
divided by
avoid the
tribe.
situation.
That's what's
if
kept
you
us
want,
busy.
if it was so bad, if it was so unpalatable, if the taste in your mouth was so bitter, you would have started to do something about it. We would have started to
At-
speak
at
up.
what- at what point
who
does
would
it
we
get to boiling
revolt?
point?
But who would we revolt against? Because there is revolution in the form of tribalism. You're told you're poor because this tribe is rich, and then there's the hate, there's the tension, which politicians are able to whip up during election time to their advantage or to their benefit. So the tribal element has actually kept us from revolution.
And
When
it-
tribes come together, we will realize there's only two, the haves and have-nots, and then we will be at the brink of revolution with a few other
It's
ingredients.
always
That is why
important
I'm
to
saying
have
you're not
one
at that point.
singular
Kenya is
and
not at
clearly
that point
identified
yet.
enemy.
Yes.
In the late 80s,
Yeah,
we had
there's no-
OMO.
It's neither here or there right now
Remember,
in Kenya.
we had OMO, Operation Moi Out, one singular
That's what I'm saying.
enemy.
You're not
You-
at the point.
you
There
operate
are
with
different
one and then
factions
you bring in
complaining
the
about
people.
different things right now. If we're looking at Kenya, until Kenya comes together and say this is the one thing or this is the one enemy that we have in order for us to move forward, this is the one block. Until Kenya is able to come together and say this is the thing, you can't have a state of revolt. What are you revolting against, or to whom?
Unless it's controlled. Like if you look at
You
what's
can't.
happening in the Arab countries, there is actually a hand in all of them. Look what's happening in Sudan, what's happening in Egypt. Tunisia had a 2.0 already.
Libya,
actually.
they took him up. They basically dismantled the whole place and restructured it, re-established it to their advantage.
What's happening in Yemen? There's one common thread in all
Absolutely.
these things, and this is one country. I mean, there's a common thread around what exactly is happening in the Arab world, and yes, so it may have the support of the West, but the orchestrating side is not necessarily coming from the West. It's coming from within the Arab League.
Saudi Arabia.
CT, what do you think of that?
You know, the thing that the 21st century, are we in the 20th or 21st century?
21st.
Just to get it right, okay.
CT, stop it. Stop it.
Is this. The information age has simply made us aware of things that have been happening in the past but were kept under wraps. We didn't know about it. That's what the information age has done. It's brought everything out in the open, and it's a great deal of information. Now, those who know how to manipulate it will give the impression that a lot of what you see is not true, and even if it's true, what is certain is that the information has changed the way people look at things. So, you're talking about revolt, you're talking about insurrection, expect to see more of it, because some of it doesn't lead to bloodshed. Not necessarily.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Zimbabwe had a peaceful
Yes.
coup, so to
Yes,
speak.
yes. And I go back to the 70s in America when you had the flower children, okay, and the hippie movement. That was a revolt.
As happy and rainbowy as it was,
It
was a
wasn't
revolt.
that happy. It wasn't. Yes, but it ushered in the culture of drugs.
Consumerism as well.
Yes,
That's how
ushered-
they counted it.
Yes, and the results are being felt now. What I would be worried about as a Kenyan is what quiet revolution is actually taking place in this country in which we're not seeing.
Which is
And,
not being televised.
Yes, and how, but it's being talked about by people who know about it, and how it will affect us in the years to come. That's what I'd be worried about. Because for sure, there's one taking place.
You will
It's
not
a
be
moral,
able to
our
stay.
moral fabric. It's burning. That's the revolution.
That's the revolution that's happening.
there.
So you're going to see something. Yeah, you'll not be able to stay at home, brother. You'll not be able to plug in, turn on, and drop out because the revolution will not be televised. 3 minutes to the top of the hour. Let's have a round of closing remarks for today.
I have had my closing remarks.
Yeah, I
was it.
quite like
Right.
that, CT. Informative.
What's yours, Jerry?
I'm not well versed with the Arab League, so I can't comment, or I don't know enough to have a good opinion, or as good opinion as I'd like to have. So I'll leave that. But I will say that there was a lot of interference from the West and competing interests with regards to the religious aspect internally. So sadly, their expectations were very different from the results. Although there was a lot of instability, turmoil, and bloodshed, I think they're coming back to reclaim what was theirs. Maybe they've realized that they didn't get what they wanted in the first revolution, and they're coming back to do that. And I pray that that's the case, that this is not yet another hand fiddling and meddling in the affairs of another country, although I think the latter is more likely to be.
Well, I don't necessarily think that there's anything wrong with being in a state of revolt, especially when you see that the status quo is not something that you would be comfortable with. I think that, it's also not something that must be felt immediately. And I think that those who are in a revolution now probably would be aware that the results will be felt generations later. And I do hope that external forces are not coming in this particular situation, because it's clear that the people are speaking, and we should see a situation where the people should be heard.
Thank you very much for tuning in to the Situation Room this morning, Kenya's biggest conversation. Join us again tomorrow morning, 6 to 10 a.m. Between now and 3 o'clock, an uninterrupted playlist of music, sugar and spice and everything nice. 3 to 7, Spice Drive with Monique. Good morning. It's 10 o'clock and thank you very much. See you tomorrow.
Shadow.